Chapter 4:18. Song Qingshu said with a smile, because I thought of the legendary female ghost. Female demons are generally very affectionate, so I wanted to come here to try my luck and see if I could have a romantic encounter. Hee hee, I didn't expect that I would really run into one. Xiaomin blushed and couldn't help but spit. Bah, a dog's mouth really can't spit out ivory. Why don't you spit it out for me to see? Seeing Zhao Min frown, Song Qingshu quickly said, Okay, let's get down to business. It's so late. Why are you looking for me? I'm playing the Guqin here, and you came here by yourself. How am I looking for you? Zhao Min snorted, and her voice was clear and moving. Keep bragging. It's late at night, and you just happened to come to the place where I was passing by to play the Guqin. If you don't have any ulterior motives, who would believe it? Song Qingshu sat down next to her and looked at her with disdain. Hey! Seeing him come over, Zhao Min suddenly stood up as if she was scalded. I was wondering why you were so annoying. Are you going to tell me or not? If you don't, I'll leave. Thinking that there were still two beautiful women waiting for him at home, Song Qingshu didn't have the patience to accompany Zhao Min here. Zhao Min couldn't help wrinkling her nose and snorted. I know that you're worried about the lack of enough support from the mountain leaders, so I came to help you out of kindness. Is this how you treat me? Don't talk to me in that disgusting tone. Song Qingshu felt a chill and quickly waved his hand. How can you be so kind? Tell me, what's the exchange? Song Qingshu knew that Zhao Min had always been a strategist, a great strategist, and an extremely rational and mature politician. He wasn't Zhang Wuji, so how could she talk to him in such a delicate tone? Zhao Min must have something to ask of him. It was no wonder that Zhao Min had coincidentally waited here. Her intelligence agency must have found out that the Golden Dragon Gang had refused to allow him to participate in the election. So, she had analyzed the situation a little and knew that he would come to investigate. Therefore, she had been waiting here for a long time. As for why she didn't intercept him before he entered the Golden Dragon Gang, it was obviously because she would have more bargaining chips if he returned empty-handed. Don't make it sound like I'm begging you, Zhao Min said angrily. According to my calculations, you only have the support of 4 mountains. You still need 2 more to qualify for the Golden Snake King election. Nowadays, the competition between the major mountain peaks is very fierce. Moreover, your martial arts are so high. Who would be willing to have a strong competitor like you? If I'm not wrong, you won't get any support even if you pay a visit to the other mountain chiefs. Song Qingshu's complexion sank. He knew that she was speaking the truth. This was what he was most worried about. If he didn't have the qualifications, then it would be in vain even if he had the ability to transcend the heavens. Aren't you afraid that I'll become the Golden Snake King if you support me? Song Qingshu asked curiously. I'm eager for you to become the Golden Snake King, Zhao Min blurted out. She noticed a strange look in Song Qingshu's eyes and hurriedly explained, Don't let your imagination run wild. You also know that it will be our Ruyang Mansion's turn to deal with the Manchurian Qing soon. If the new Golden Snake King is mediocre, then the Golden Snake Battalion will be easily disposed of by the Manchurian Qing Imperial Court. Then we'll have a headache. Song Qingshu suddenly realized, so you need the Golden Snake Battalion to exist all the time. Do you want to divert the Manchurian Qing's attention and waste their military supplies? He snickered in his heart. If Zhao Min finds out that I'm also Kangxi, won't she die of anger? That's right, Zhao Min admitted frankly. On the surface, I'm going to the south as a diplomatic envoy to the southern Song dynasty. In reality, I want to support a spokesperson for the Golden Snake Battalion. Originally, I wanted to look for the 4th Lady of the Redcoat Army, Yang Miaojin, who knew that they'd already formed an alliance with the Sun Moon sect. Zhao Min's expression was obviously extremely angry. It was as if her beloved toy had been snatched away by someone else. Why aren't you willing to support the Redcoat Army and the Sun Moon sect after they've formed an alliance? Song Qingshu asked curiously. Zhao Min snorted. I naturally have my reasons. You don't have to worry about it. Song Qingshu nodded. All right, then tell me what condition you want me to agree to. Accompany me to meet someone later. The faint moonlight shone through the gaps between the pine leaves and onto Zhao Min's flawless face. It made her look like a fairy that had fallen into the mortal world. Unfortunately, her expression was solemn, and there was a hint of killing intent in it. "Who is it?" Song Qing-shu asked curiously. Zhao Min hesitated for a long time. Finally, her red lips parted slightly, and she faintly spat out 3 words, "Zhang Wuji." Song Qing-shu's expression changed slightly, and he also became silent. "Is Zhang Wuji nearby now?" Thinking of his recent fight with Zhang Wuji, Song Qing-shu had a definite answer. "Why do you need someone to accompany you when you're going to see Zhang Wuji?" Song Qing-shu suddenly asked curiously. Normally, when couples meet, the more private the better. They were afraid of being seen by outsiders. However, Zhao Min did the opposite. An inexplicable sadness flashed through Zhao Min's eyes. She revealed a mournful smile. "He's the leader of the Ming dynasty, and I'm the princess of Mongolia. Mongolia and the Ming dynasty are at war now. I have to be on guard so that he doesn't take me as a hostage." "How could Zhang Wuji bear to take you as a hostage?" Hearing Zhao Min's excuse that was full of loopholes, Song Qing-shu subconsciously thought of this. However, seeing that she had something to hide, he didn't ask. "Then why didn't you find your subordinates to accompany you?" Song Qing-shu was indeed curious. Currently, Zhao Min's subordinates could be said to be full of masters. Priest Baisang, the leader of the Jin gang, and Jinlu and Fuwang were all supermasters. The Xiaming elders were not weak either. Why didn't she bring more trustworthy subordinates, and instead came to him? As he thought about it, Song Qing-shu even began to suspect that this could be a trap set by Zhao Min. She wanted to use this opportunity to surround and kill him. "There are some things that I don't want them to know." Zhao Min's face was expressionless as she said coldly, "Are you going or not?" "Yes, of course I'm going." Since Zhao Min could provide enough support for the mountain leaders, what harm would there be in making a trip? Even if there was an ambush, with his current martial arts and unparalleled lightness skill, it should be more than enough to protect himself. "Then let's go." Zhao Min flicked her sleeves and left. Sigh. Looking at the zither beside her, it was clearly not an ordinary item. Song Qing-shu felt sorry for her. "You're just going to leave this zither here?" Zhao Min's figure paused, and in the end, it turned into a faint sigh. "Without a bosom friend, who will know when the string is broken?" What a spendthrift woman. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but mutter, and hurriedly followed. "I say, what happened between you and Zhang Wuji?" "I don't know either." Zhao Min shook her head lightly. "You don't know?" Song Qing-shu was stunned. Zhao Min forced a smile. "I have a lot of doubts in my heart too, so I'm going to clarify it now." Chapter 419. Seeing that Zhao Min didn't look like she was lying, Song Qing-shu was stunned. He hurriedly followed her as she walked further away. "I finally know why you don't want to support Yang Miaozhen." Seeing Zhao Min's cold expression as she walked silently with her head lowered, Song Qing-shu wanted to break the awkward silence. "Why?" Zhao Min replied indifferently. "Because the Red Coat Army and the Sun Moon sect have formed an alliance." Song Qing-shu deduced with confidence. A hint of approval flashed across Zhao Min's eyes, but she remained calm and collected. "What does their alliance have to do with me?" Ren Wuxing escaped from the plum village of Westlake in an attempt to regain his position. However, after so many years, the leader of the Sun Moon sect, Dongfang Bubi, was recognized as the #1 person in the underworld. Ren Wuxing knew that he was no match for him, so he asked for help from the Ming dynasty, who had a good relationship with the Sun Moon sect. In the end, Zhang Wuji personally took action and knocked Dongfang Bubi down into the abyss. Since then, the Sun Moon sect has become the most loyal ally of the Ming dynasty. Song Qing-shu thought that if he hadn't been hiding in Ren Yingying's bathtub, he wouldn't have known that the Sun Moon sect and the Ming dynasty's seemingly close relationship was actually treacherous in the dark. He wasn't sure if Zhao Min was a friend or foe, so there was no need to reveal this to her. "Looking at you, it seems like you've become enemies with Zhang Wuji. Naturally, you wouldn't want to support the Red Coat Army that has a good relationship with the Sun Moon sect," Song Qing-shu continued. Zhao Min declined to comment. She coldly snorted and said, "You'd better save your energy and think about whether you can beat him in a fight. If I remember correctly, The two of you have been trying to get rid of each other for a long time. Oh. Song Qingshu walked quickly to Zhao Min's side and smelled her fragrance. He said meaningfully, "Do you want me to win, or do you want Zhang Wuji to win?" Zhao Min said coldly, "I can't wait for the two of you to die together." Song Qingshu immediately laughed. "Zhang Wuji is your lover, and I'm just an outsider. You actually want us to perish together. It seems that in your heart, you've already unconsciously sided with me. You flatter yourself," Zhao Min said angrily. "This princess has never seen such a shameless person. His skin is thicker than the city wall." "Thank you for the compliment, Your Highness." Although Song Qingshu had a smile on his face, his heart was extremely solemn. Last time, he had fought Zhang Wuji for a short time, but both of them had only touched the surface. If they were to really fight to the death, it was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Although he had cultivated to an extremely high realm, Zhang Wuji had a vigorous internal energy of the 9-yang divine technique. In the martial arts world, there were only a few people who had internal energy that could surpass him. Moreover, Zhang Wuji had the supreme secret manual of the Ming Dynasty, the Heaven and Earth Great Shift. In the past, Song Qingshu's martial arts were weak, and he felt that the Heaven and Earth Great Shift was the most divine martial art in the world. However, now that Song Qingshu's martial arts are high, he was constantly trying to figure out the principles of the Heaven and Earth Great Shift. In his opinion, the Ming Dynasty's The Heaven and Earth Great Shift and the Gusamurong clan's Big Dipper had similar effects. They were both extremely brilliant martial arts that borrowed strength to fight strength. First of all, it allowed one to be in an invincible position. Although borrowing strength to fight strength was magical, there was still a limit to the amount of strength he could borrow. Otherwise, would the previous cult masters of the Ming Dynasty and the Gusamurong clan's master not be invincible in the world? Therefore, Song Qingshu was not very afraid of the effect of borrowing strength to fight strength. However, the Heaven and Earth Great Shift also had the effect of stimulating the human body's potential. In Song Qingshu's opinion, the Heaven and Earth Great Shift was like a power amplifier. The power of the same punch could be optimized and amplified by the Heaven and Earth Great Shift. Zhang Wuji possessed the 9-yang divine skill, and his inner energy cultivation base was already world-shattering. The strength of each and every one of his moves was increased several times by the Heaven and Earth Great Shift. Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on just thinking about it. During the battle at Blackwood Cliff, he had the inner force of the 9-yin manual and the God illuminating scripture. When he was punched, the vital qi in his body was blasted into a chaotic state. He almost became a cripple again. He had no choice but to go to Tubo and learn the Joy Diana to avert the danger. Even with Dongfang Mushiwe's high level of martial arts, although she was injured by Feng Qingyang's innate sword qi, she was severely injured after being ambushed by Zhang Wuji. Her strength was not even 10% of her peak. One could only imagine how terrifying the force of Zhang Wuji's moves was. This Zhang Wuji is simply cheating. As he thought about it, Song Qingshu could not help but curse in his heart. In the original work, although Zhang Wuji's martial arts were high, when it came to a real fight, he could only unleash 60% to 70% of his strength. If he encountered a top-notch expert, his results would be worrisome. There was a saying that described Zhang Wuji's martial arts in the original work. He would not lose much, but he would not win much. After fighting with Zhang Wuji so many times, Song Qingshu knew that this Zhang Wuji would win very along the way. The man and the woman were full of thoughts. Before they knew it, they had arrived at a side courtyard. Zhang Wuji is in this courtyard. Zhao Min pointed at the wall in front of them and said to Song Qingshu, "Your lightness skill is good. Bring me in quietly. It's best if he doesn't notice us." Zhao Min was in charge of the Ruyang Palace's intelligence network. With her meticulous investigation, even the traces of the sect leader of the Ming Dynasty could not escape her detection. Zhang Wuji's martial arts are very high. It'll be difficult to get close without being discovered by him. Song Qingshu frowned. It would be easy to hide from Zhang Wuji's eyes and ears if he was alone, but there was a delicate princess by his side. Although Zhao Min's martial arts could be considered good in Jianghu, for someone at Zhang Wuji's level, she was no different from a weak girl who did not know martial arts. It's dangerous to get close, so let's stay away. Zhao Min had originally planned to pay a visit directly, but she changed her mind at the last moment. She wanted to investigate in secret first, and see if she could find anything. All right, but I'll have to offend you, princess. After Song Qingshu finished speaking, he reached out and put his arm around Zhao Min's waist. With a light leap, he slipped into the courtyard like a wisp of smoke. Although it was not the first time that she was held in Song Qingshu's arms, Zhao Min still felt a little uncomfortable. In the past few times, she could say that she was held hostage by him and could not resist, but today she had voluntarily agreed to it. As long as we can find out the truth, this is nothing. Zhao Min finally found a reason to comfort herself. Hearing the conversation coming from a pavilion not far away, Song Qingshu's figure flashed. He took Zhao Min and hid in a luxuriant tree. Seeing the man and woman in the pavilion clearly, Song Qingshu's face could not help but become a little gloomy. How does Prince Song feel when he sees his wife dating another man in the middle of the night? Zhao Min was worried that her voice would be heard by Zhang Wuji, so her lips almost touched the skin of Song Qingshu's ear. The man and woman sitting in the pavilion were naturally Zhang Wuji and Zhou Zhuhua. The two of them sat on both sides of a stone table and seemed to be talking about something. How does the princess feel when she sees her lover with another woman in the middle of the night? Song Qingshu retorted sarcastically and turned his head. He did not know that Zhao Min's lips were so close to his that their lips immediately touched. Chapter 420. Zhao Min's almond-shaped eyes widened, and her head subconsciously leaned back, but she suddenly felt a numbness in her waist and immediately lost control of her body. Song Qingshu hooked Zhao Min's smooth chin and lowered his head to kiss her rosy and moving lips. Feeling a foreign object entering her teeth, Zhao Min heard Song Qingshu's voice through secret voice sending before she had time to get angry. They let us down. Why should we let them down? Zhao Min's eyes were dazed, and she seemed to think of something in her heart. With her attention diverted, her resistance was immediately not so strong. Under the moonlight, Zhao Min's white cheeks emitted a jade-like radiance. Seeing her blurred eyes, Song Qingshu naturally would not be polite and domineeringly entangled her sweet little tongue. Feeling Song Qingshu's unusual movement, Zhao Min finally came back to her senses. She could not help but be ashamed and angry, and she clenched her teeth and bit down. "This," Song Qingshu gasped, pressed his lips, and said angrily, "Are you a dog? Who asked you to be rude to me?" Although Zhao Min was extremely angry, she was worried that their whereabouts would be discovered by Zhang Wuji, so she had to suppress her anger and said in an extremely low voice, "I saw your lips moving closer, and I thought you wanted to kiss me. You also know that I have never hurt a girl's heart." Song Qingshu spouted nonsense with a deadpan expression. Seeing him make a false accusation, Zhao Min was so angry that she laughed. "Your Excellency's thick skin is really rare in my life. Speak softly." Song Qingshu was frightened by her and quickly pressed her lips. "Do you want to be discovered by them?" Zhao Min was stunned, and obviously, she had some scruples in her heart. Her lips moved, but in the end, she still swallowed what she wanted to say. Placing his finger on Zhao Min's rosy lips and feeling her lips move slightly, Song Qingshu subconsciously moved his finger and gently slid it across the moist and moving red lips in front of him. Zhao Min was also stunned by his actions. She really couldn't understand why Song Qingshu still had the mood to take advantage of her at such a time. If it wasn't for the fact that she was worried that the commotion would alarm the two people in the distance, she would have already drawn her sword. "Have you had enough?" Zhao Min glared at Song Qingshu. "No." Zhao Min was infuriated by his shameless reaction. She still wanted to say something, but as soon as her lips parted, his finger slipped in. Zhao Min didn't know what was wrong with her, but her first reaction was to stick out her tongue and lick it. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat when he felt the smooth and tender feeling on his fingers. He gently pulled his fingers out, and after enjoying the tightness of Zhao Min's lips, he naughtily inserted his fingers back again. Zhao Min blushed at his bold and frivolous behavior. She couldn't bear it anymore. She clenched her teeth, intending to completely bite off the foreign object that invaded her mouth. Faintly tasting the taste of blood in her mouth, Zhao Min was stunned to find that the hateful man didn't shrink back, nor did he circulate his internal energy to protect his finger. Instead, he looked at her warmly and allowed her to bite him like this. Pa pa pa. Zhao Min hurriedly spat out his hand. She couldn't suppress the curiosity in her heart. Why didn't you circulate your internal energy to resist? If I spread my internal energy on my finger, I'm afraid that your beautiful teeth would be gone, Song Qingshu said with a smile. What's more, I was rude to a beauty, so I should be punished. Zhao Min suddenly realized that she didn't know why, but her belly full of anger was actually dissipated by his few words. Of course, Zhao Min couldn't bring herself to smile and greet him, so she could only deliberately keep a straight face and warn him, don't do this next time. That's not necessarily true. Song Qingshu looked at the two people in the distance, his eyes inexplicably complicated. Your man bullied my woman, so I will naturally bully back. What man and woman are you talking about? Zhao Min looked at the two people in the distance and immediately exposed Song Qingshu's lie. The two of them are sitting so far away, but Zhang Wuji didn't do anything. Really? Song Qingshu pretended to be suddenly enlightened. But I didn't do anything now. It doesn't mean that I won't do anything later. I'm just taking revenge in advance. What a nonsense. Zhao Min was so angry that her teeth itched. She wondered why she suddenly became soft-hearted just now. She really should bite off his hateful finger and see if he would still be so proud. Why is the princess so angry? Song Qingshu looked at her in confusion. Think about it from another angle. Is my woman seducing your man now? You should be very happy to take some compensation from me to take revenge on her. Zhao Min was confused by his fallacious reasoning. Although she subconsciously felt that something was wrong, she couldn't find a reason to refute. I won't talk nonsense with you. Listen carefully to what they are talking about. When Zhao Min and Song Qingshu were chatting, they were afraid that they would be discovered. So one of them whispered in each other's ears, and the other, who was skilled in martial arts, used secret voice sending to reply. On the contrary, Zhang Wuji and Zhou Zhuo were sitting in an open space talking, and they didn't deliberately lower their voices. So Zhao Min and Song Qingshu could vaguely hear their conversation, but they couldn't hear the conversation between Zhao Min and Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu cast a regretful glance at Zhao Min, thinking that if he had known this would happen, he would not have deliberately shown off by using the secret sound transmission technique. Otherwise, right now, he would be able to openly whisper in Zhao Min's ear and conveniently take advantage of her. At the thought of being able to molest his woman in front of Zhang Wuji, Song Qingshu couldn't suppress some evil thoughts that kept rising in his heart. However, Song Qingshu understood that if he continued, it was difficult to guarantee that Zhao Min wouldn't turn against him, and then it would be a bit of a loss. It was better to listen to what Zhang Wuji and Zhou Zhuo were talking about. Zhang Jiaozhu, did you invite me here just to talk about these old things? Zhou Zhuo's cold voice came. Zhang Wuji said rather sadly, Little sister Zhou, there's no outsider here, so why do you have to call me so distant? Where's that girl who chased after me and kept calling Wuji Gij? Zhou Zhuo was stunned. Clearly, he had evoked memories of the past. In the end, she faintly sighed and said, the past is the past. In Haozhou, you and I have broken off all ties. It's better not to mention the past. Zhang Wuji looked at her in surprise and said, That's not what you said on Mount Shaoshi. Hearing him mention the events of the lion-slaying assembly, Zhou Zhuo inadvertently blushed. She quickly said, Back then, I was possessed for a moment, so I said those things to you. I've thought about it carefully. Our fate has come to an end, so there's no need to force it. Zhang Wuji was silent for a moment, then suddenly asked, Is it because of Song Qingshu? Hearing his words, Zhao Min couldn't help poking the waist of the man next to her. She couldn't hide the excitement on her face. Hey, it's your turn. Song Qingshu glanced at her angrily. He thought that she had come with a heavy heart, but now she was so happy. A woman's gossiping mentality was indeed accurate. However, Song Qingshu was also very curious about how Zhou Zhuruo would answer, so he quickly continued to listen. Hearing Zhang Wuji mention Song Qingshu, Zhou Zhuruo's face clearly blushed, but she denied it and said, "It has nothing to do with him. I figured it out myself." "Zhuruo, you don't have to lie to me." A trace of pain flashed across Zhang Wuji's face. "I can see that you're no longer a virgin. I'm afraid it was Song Qingshu who did it." Hearing this explosive news, Zhao Min almost cried out. She quickly covered her mouth. She and Zhou Zhuruo had been fighting each other for so long. She knew that Zhang Wuji might love her more, but he obviously also loved Zhou Zhuruo. The years of fighting seemed to have come to an end now. However, this was a competition with no winner, and she didn't have the last laugh. "You can tell from the appearance whether I'm a virgin or not." Song Qingshu couldn't help but turn his head to look at Zhao Min. Being panicked by his gaze, Zhao Min couldn't help but say angrily, "Why are you looking at me? How would I know this kind of thing?" Song Qingshu carefully looked at her beautiful face, observed her eyebrows, looked at the shape of her chest, and finally leaned over to smell the fragrance on her body. His head was already a mess. "I really can't tell. Are you still a girl?" Zhao Min was creeped out by his strange gaze. Just as she was wondering what he was looking at, she suddenly heard his question. She was so angry that her lungs almost exploded. "It's none of your business. Get lost." It was a mess over there, and it was obviously similar in the pavilion. Hearing all this from her former fiancé, Zhou Zhuruo's face turned red and white. Finally, she took a deep breath and calmed her agitated mood. She said faintly, "I'm Lady Song. What's so strange about that? I know you won't give yourself to him." Zhang Wuji stood up and paced back and forth in the pavilion. He was obviously extremely anxious. He must have used some despicable means, right? Thinking of the night when she was poisoned by the 10 fragrant muscle-weakening powder and was bullied by Song Qingshu wantonly, Zhou Zhuruo's face was also a little ugly. If that wasn't despicable, what was despicable? "If you don't speak, I'll take it that you agree." Zhang Wuji smashed the railing beside him into pieces. "Zhuruo, I'll definitely kill him for you." Zhou Zhuruo frowned and said faintly, "Even if someone wants to kill him, it should be me. There's no need for Zhang Jiaozhu to do it." In fact, she knew in her heart that even if Song Qingshu stood in front of her without resistance, it was still unknown whether she could bear to kill him. After their reunion in the Forbidden City last time, Zhou Zhuruo had already given up the idea of revenge. This time, she came to Shandong to see Song Qingshu again. She didn't expect that she would see him again, but he was accompanied by another woman. Last time in the Forbidden City, she knew the existence of Xia Qingqing and Dongfang Muxue. However, considering that they went to the Forbidden City together to avenge Song Qingshu, she acquiesced to the existence of the two women. She didn't expect that she would meet other women this time. Zhou Zhuruo once said that even if everyone in the world betrayed her, Song Qingshu would not betray her. However, what happened now made her doubt whether Song Qingshu was still the person who loved her infatuatedly at that time. She didn't cherish it when she got it, but she regretted it when she lost it. This was the truest psychological portrayal of Zhou Zhuruo now. When Zhou Zhuruo was wandering, she suddenly heard Zhang Wuji say, "Zhuruo, believe me, I don't mind this matter. Let's start over, okay?" Chapter 421. Hearing Zhang Wuji's words from afar, Zhao Min's body trembled, and she couldn't help but tighten her grip on Song Qingshu's little hand. Hey, your man is shameless. Why did you pinch me?" Although Song Qingshu was teasing her, his attention was still on the pavilion in the distance, nervously waiting for Zhou Zhuruo's answer. Zhou Zhuruo looked at Zhang Wuji in surprise, and her face turned red and white. Obviously, she hadn't expected him to say such a thing. She said coldly, "You're not my husband. I don't care whether you mind or not." Zhang Wuji couldn't help but be stunned. Obviously, he hadn't expected her to answer so coldly. Beautiful. Song Qingshu danced with joy, and he couldn't help but pinch Zhao Min's slender and delicate waist. "You bastard." Zhao Min's tears were about to come out, and her beautiful eyes were watery. However, Most of her attention was on Zhang Wuji, so she wasn't in the mood to pursue the matter. Zhiruo, I know you're angry about what happened in Haozhou. Before Zhang Wuji could finish, Zhou Zhiruo directly interrupted. I don't want to mention the past anymore. Zhang Jiaozhu has already chosen Princess Zhao. Zhang Wuji suddenly said, Oh, well, you probably don't know, but because of you, I've already fallen out with Minmin. Song Qingshu looked at the woman beside him in surprise and asked quietly, Really? Zhao Min tightly closed her lips and didn't answer him. Zhou Zhuo was obviously also shocked, and she asked in confusion, Because of me? Zhang Wuji nodded and smiled bitterly. You know she's very smart. When we were on Mount Shaoshi, I came to see you every night. I thought I was doing it secretly, but I still couldn't hide it from her. Zhou Zhuo also knew Zhao Min's character very well. She definitely couldn't stand being deceived by Zhang Wuji like this. Thinking that it was her fault that caused the discord between the two, Zhou Zhuo also felt a trace of apology in her heart. You can explain it to her. At that time, you said you were willing to be my. Seeing Zhou Zhuo's gloomy face, Zhang Wuji swallowed the words of the two women sharing the same husband. In the past, I've been avoiding choosing. You, Zhao Min, Xiao Zhao, Zhu, you all have deep feelings for me. I've been hesitating about who to choose. But later, I finally figured out. You are all excellent women, so I didn't. I've already lost Xiao Zhao and Zhu, so I don't want to lose any of you. This shameless face is quite similar to my style. Listening to this, Song Qingshu sneered incessantly. On the side, Zhao Min's delicate eyebrows were also tightly knitted. No one knew what she was thinking. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Zhang Jiaozhu is a bit too greedy. Zhou Zhiruo said coldly. Why can't I have my cake and eat it too? I like you. You also like me. Why can't we be together? Zhang Wuji suddenly said angrily. Yes, I used to like you, but you and I are not fated to be together. We are destined to never be together. Zhou Zhiruo looked at Zhang Wuji with surprise. Suddenly, she said with some hesitation, Why do I feel that you have changed a bit? You're not like the gentle and mellow Wuji Gij from before. Song Qingshu nodded in agreement. He asked Zhao Min in a low voice, Do you have this feeling? Zhao Min's face was as cold as frost. She did not answer him. Song Qingshu was not interested, so he continued to watch. Zhang Wuji's countenance changed, but he quickly recovered. Everyone changes every day. What's so strange about that? Zhiruo Mimi, haven't you also changed? You didn't like Song Qingshu at all before, but now, because of him, you actually have feelings for him. Zhou Zhuo snorted coldly and said, You don't need to care about my business. Zhang Wuji did not take it seriously. He continued, Let's talk about Song Qingshu. Don't tell me he hasn't changed. In the past, his kung fu could only be said to be mediocre, and all the meridians in his body were broken at the Shaoshi Mountain. In the end, in just 1 or 2 years, his reputation rose, and he became a top master in the martial arts world. Song Qingshu's expression turned cold. His soul had transmigrated into the original Song Qingshu. This was his biggest secret. He could feel that Zhang Wuji was different from the original Zhang Wuji. How could others not feel the earth-shattering change in him? Zhou Zhiruo's heart skipped a beat. Obviously, she had the same doubts, but she still answered subconsciously. You told me before that your 9-yang divine skill was found somewhere in Kunlun. If you can have a fortuitous encounter, of course, other people can also have a fortuitous encounter. What's more, I taught him the 9 manual in the past. It's not strange for him to have today's achievements. All right, let's say that his kung fu is because of a fortuitous encounter. Zhang Wuji drank the wine in his cup in one gulp. But what about his character? I remember that in the past, Song Qingshu loved you so much that he didn't even care about other women. Even a beautiful woman like Zhao Min couldn't cause the slightest ripple in his heart. But now Zhang Wuji sneered again and again. The women by his side have changed one after another. There are rumors of his philandering everywhere in the martial arts world. In essence, there is no difference from the actions of perverts like Yin Zhanghe and Tian Boguan. Is he still the infatuated Song Qingshu of the past? Listening to Zhang Wuji's words, Zhao Min couldn't help but poke the body of the man beside her. Little pervert, didn't you disdain me? Who said that you can't cause ripples in my heart? Such a beautiful young girl. Any man can't help but be tempted. Song Qingshu couldn't help but use his fingers to touch her delicate face. The smoothness and tenderness of his fingertips made him admire it. He secretly added in his heart, "What's more, you are Zhang Wuji's lover." Zhao Min's body subconsciously leaned back and said with a hint of anger, "If you don't come, you will touch me. You are indeed a pervert. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want." Song Qingshu shook his finger and whispered, "You call me a pervert, but I only touch you at most. What did I touch you? Rogue." Zhao Min couldn't help but roll her eyes. She was too lazy to argue with him and continued to listen. In the pavilion, it was obvious that Zhang Wuji had poked Zhou Zhiruo's sore spot. She had encountered other women by Song Qingshu's side many times. However, in her opinion, Song Qingshu's abnormality was more likely because he found out that she and Zhang Wuji had an ambiguous relationship on Shaoshi Mountain that day. Out of anger and despair, he had abandoned himself to despair. Thinking of the scene when she had just left Shaoshi Mountain, she had been poisoned by the 10 fragrant muscle-weakening powder. Zhou Zhiruo's pretty face couldn't help but turn red and white. Whether he's fickle or devoted, it's all my family's business. There's no need for Zhang Jiaozhu to worry about it. Zhou Zhiruo was very annoyed. She suddenly stood up and said, "It's late now. If Zhang Jiaozhu has nothing else to say, I will leave first." Zhang Wuji smiled evilly and said, "Oh, if you don't have me in your heart, why did you come to find me in the middle of the night after receiving my invitation?" Zhou Zhiruo replied indifferently, "After all, I'm a married woman, and as the head of a sect, I naturally have to worry about the impact. The reason why I came here tonight was because you and I have known each other since childhood. I came to see if you have anything to say. Since you're talking about these old things, it's fine if we don't meet in the future." Seeing that Zhou Zhiruo had clearly drawn a line with Zhang Wuji, Song Qingshu couldn't help but smile. Zhao Min couldn't help turning her head to look at the man beside her. After arguing with Zhou Zhiruo for so long, Zhao Min naturally knew about Zhou Zhiruo's feelings for Zhang Wuji in the past. She didn't expect that she would actually give up her former love for this man in front of her. For the man in front of her, she had resolutely cut off her past love. Did this bastard have such great charm? "Zhiruo, are you really so cruel?" Seeing that Zhou Zhiruo was about to leave, Zhang Wuji subconsciously reached out to pull her. Song Qingshu frowned and was about to jump out, but he didn't expect that his shoulder would be gently pressed by a small hand. He heard Zhao Min say, "You hide here first. I'll go out and call you later." Song Qingshu thought about it. In front of these two women, maybe Zhang Wuji would reveal some secrets, so he nodded and agreed. Seeing Zhang Wuji reach out, Zhou Zhuo subconsciously dodged to the side and said coldly, "Zhang Jiaozhu, please behave yourself." A trace of surprise flashed in Zhang Wuji's eyes. "Zhiruo, I didn't expect that after not seeing you for such a long time, you have practiced the Nining Sutra to such a level." As he spoke, he was about to approach her again. Suddenly, a light snort came from a big tree in the distance. Zhang Wuji couldn't help but be startled. He turned his head and glared at the direction of Song Qingshu and said, "Who is it?" Zhao Min nodded to Song Qingshu and then jumped down lightly. There was a sarcastic smile on her lips. "It's me." Seeing Zhao Min's appearance clearly, Zhou Zhiruo was startled. She noticed that Zhang Wuji's complexion was somewhat unsightly by her side. She was extremely surprised in her heart. Aren't they still lovey-dovey and lovey-dovey on Mount Shaoshi? Why is the atmosphere between these two so strange? A smile quickly appeared on Zhang Wuji's face. Min, I finally see you again. Why did you leave without saying goodbye that day?" Zhao Min put her hands behind her back and slowly approached the pavilion. "You should ask yourself this question." "Myself?" Zhang Wuji forced a smile. "What do you want to ask me?" On the side, Zhou Zhiruo felt very embarrassed. She said coldly, "You two take your time to talk. I'll leave first." "Hey!" Zhao Min stopped her and said with a double meaning, I'm afraid that some people will be disappointed if you leave. Zhou Zhuruo didn't know that she was actually referring to Song Qing-shu. Seeing Zhao Min looking at Zhang Wuji with a faint smile, she thought that she was making sarcastic remarks. She couldn't help but snort coldly and turn around to leave. What we're going to talk about is related to Miss Zhou. Miss Zhou can stay and listen, Zhao Min said lightly. Sure enough, Zhou Zhuruo stopped walking. Zhao Min ignored her and turned to look at Zhang Wuji. Looking at the handsome face of her former lover, Zhao Min felt a pain in her heart. Zhang Wuji, I'm here this time because I have 3 questions to ask you. Zhang Wuji smiled gently. As long as you want to know, not to mention 3, I'll answer you one by one, even if it's 30 or 300 questions. Zhao Min looked at Zhou Zhuruo expressionlessly. Sect leader Zhou, did Zhang Wuji speak in such a glib tone before? Chapter 422. Zhou Zhuruo was obviously a little surprised and doubtful. She shook her head subconsciously. No. Seeing the 2 women's surprised eyes, Zhang Wuji stood with his hands behind his back and said lightly, People change. People do change. Zhao Min snorted. Obviously, she was not in the mood to argue with him about this issue, like Zhou Zhuruo. She looked serious and said in a cold voice, The first question. Zhang Wuji nodded and motioned for her to continue. You promised me that I would not be the Mongolian princess and you would not be the leader of the Ming dynasty. We would live in seclusion in Jianghu. Zhao Min showed a gentle smile on her face, but then her face became gloomy. Why did you go back on your word? Zhang Wuji sighed and looked helpless. You also know that after the former leader of the Ming dynasty, Yang Dingtian, disappeared, the Ming dynasty fell apart and was almost destroyed by the 6 major sects. If I just let it go, wouldn't the newly unified Ming dynasty return to a state of disunity? Today is different from the past. There are many powerful forces in the Western region. As long as the Ming dynasty shows any signs of weakness, it will be swallowed by the surrounding forces. How can I put so many good brothers in danger for my own selfish interests? Song Qing-shu in the shade could not help but be stunned. It seemed that Zhang Wuji was still an indomitable hero. He had seen his despicable side several times. Could it be that he was like Wei Xiaobao and had to get rid of him? For your own selfish interests? Zhao Min smiled bitterly. For you, I betrayed longevity heaven, the bloodline of Tsang Lang and Bai Lu, Mongolia, and my father and brother. In the end, all I get is a sentence from you that I can't do it for my own selfish interests. Min, I know that you've sacrificed too much for me. Zhang Wuji wanted to say something, but hesitated. That's why I'll never hurt anyone from the Ryong mansion in this lifetime. Zhao Min directly cut him off and said, there are hundreds of thousands of elite soldiers under the command of the Ryong mansion. Why will my father and brother need you to let them go? On the other hand, you had once fallen into the hands of the Ryong mansion. If I had not disregarded my reputation and lied that I was pregnant with your flesh and blood and threatened my father with death, would you still be able to stand here in one piece and say such big words? Zhang Wuji was silent for a long time. Min, I will always remember your sacrifice. If I can unify the world in the future, the position of empress will belong to you. At the side, Zhou Zhuruo's expression changed slightly. Although her expression was not obvious, Zhao Min still caught it. Zhao Min looked meaningfully in the direction of Song Qing-shu and sneered. What about your sister Zhuruo? Zhang Wuji quickly answered. When I was young, I was poisoned by cold poison. When I was disheartened, fortunately, Sister Zhuo persuaded me, and I reignited my fighting spirit to survive. I will never forget this kindness, so in the future, I will set up 2 empresses in the East and West palaces, and the 2 of you will be in charge of them together. When she heard Zhang Wuji mention the time when he was young, and she scraped off the fish bones to feed him, Zhou Zhuo suddenly seemed a little lost. However, when she heard about the East and West palaces, she could not help but frown and say, although I don't know what happened between the 2 of you, don't involve me in the quarrel between the 2 of you. I'm now a wife. Please behave yourself, Zhang Jiaozhu. Miss Zhou, in the future, You will be glad that you expressed your position so clearly tonight." Zhao Min was filled with emotion. She did not know if Zhou Zhiruo's words were sincere or if she was pretending to be cold. However, Song Qingshu had heard everything she said today. After tonight, the relationship between the two would probably be further improved. "What do you mean?" Zhou Zhiruo had never liked Zhao Min, especially her deliberately mysterious and proud look. "Nothing." Zhao Min smiled faintly. "In fact, no matter what you think in your heart, I still want to give you a piece of advice. Just listen to Zhang Wuji's words. If you take it seriously, then you are stupid." Seeing her rival of many years being defeated, Zhou Zhiruo could not help but tease. Junjun Yangyang abandoned everything to follow him, but was abandoned like a shoe by him. Naturally, you will not have a good evaluation of him. "Who said that he abandoned me? I clearly left of my own accord," Zhao Min said angrily. "Do you really think that his promise to you was because of the kindness of having a meal in Hanshui in the past?" Zhou Zhuo was stunned and could not speak for a long time. On the side, Zhang Wuji's face darkened. Min, what nonsense are you talking about?" "I'm talking nonsense." Zhao Min smiled sadly. "Sometimes, I really hate myself for being so smart. Otherwise, I could be kept in the dark for the rest of my life and live happily with you." The abnormal behavior of the two made Zhou Zhuo suspicious. She had wanted to leave long ago, but there was a voice in her mind that told her to stay and see what was going on. Seeing that Zhou Zhuo was looking at him in confusion, Zhang Wuji pretended to be calm and said to Zhao Min, "I know that you've always been quick-witted, but it's better not to make groundless accusations." Zhao Min smiled proudly. Min Teamer, have always been meticulous. If I hadn't really found evidence, why would I accuse you of something groundless?" Seeing that Zhang Wuji's expression had changed slightly, Zhou Zhiruo could no longer suppress the doubts in her heart and asked, "What is it?" Zhao Min watched the change in Zhang Wuji's expression, and a cruel smile flashed across her lips. "You'll have to ask yourself this first. Is sect leader Zhou's father really just an ordinary fisherman on the banks of Hanshui?" Zhou Zhiruo's face paled. Only a few people in the world knew of her background, and she still remembered Zhang Sanfeng's warning. She nodded without hesitation. "Of course. How could an ordinary fisherman's daughter have such a fresh and refined name as Zhiruo?" The name Zhiruo can be found in the Lizi and Sima Xiangru Zishifu. How could an ordinary fisherman have such knowledge? Zhao Min smiled. "Sect leader Zhou, your father is probably the former leader of the school of White Lotus, Zhou Ziwang." Zhou Zhuo narrowed her eyes, and a murderous aura flitted across them. Zhao Min smiled nonchalantly. Because of the Southern Song dynasty, the school of White Lotus has become a taboo. But sect leader Zhou, don't worry. Others may be afraid of the Southern Song dynasty, but I, Zhao Min, am not. The school of White Lotus? Zhiruo's father was Zhou Zhuang, the prince of Zhou who had revolted and swept half of the Southern Song dynasty. Song Qingshu was shocked. Although he was Zhou Zhiruo's husband, he did not know the secret. No wonder Zhou Zhiruo was so secretive about her background. All these years, the Southern Song dynasty had been pursuing the remnants of the White Lotus. If Zhou Zhiruo's identity was exposed, her position as the leader of the Amei sect would probably be lost. "What do you want?" Zhou Zhiruo's voice was cold, and she looked at Zhao Min quietly. "I don't want anything." Zhao Min smiled. "I just want to tell you that Zhang Wuji approached you more because you were Zhou Ziwang's daughter and not because of the favor of having a meal at Hanshui in the past. After more than 10 years of suppression, the school of White Lotus has disappeared on the surface," Zhao Min continued. "But according to the Riyang Mansion's intelligence, the school of White Lotus has gradually regained its strength in recent years under the leadership of the previous leader, Zhou Ziwang's master, Monk Peng, and the saintess Tang Sai'er. They have learned their lesson from their previous failure, so they have been biding their time and waiting for the world to be in chaos. Our Zhang Jiaozhu must have been interested in the power of the school of White Lotus, so he approached you, sect leader Zhou." Zhao Min's voice was crisp and clear, and she narrated everything unhurriedly. But for some reason, the others in the room felt a chill when they heard it. As the leader of the Ming dynasty, the largest sect in the west, Zhang Jiaozhu took in the largest sect in the east, the Sun Moon God sect, as a vassal a few months ago. Now, as long as he can get sect leader Zhou, not only can he control the Amei sect in the southwest, he can also take control of the school of White Lotus in the southeast. North, south, east, and west are all under your control. What a great move, and what a deep scheme. When she heard Zhao Min's explanation, Zhou Zhuo could not help but look at Zhang Wuji in fear. She instinctively took a step back. Was this still the indecisive Zhang Wuji that she was familiar with? Up in the tree, Song Qingshu was also speechless as he listened. He had thought that by stealing the sky and taking control of the Manchurian Qing's political power was already a great achievement. Who would have thought that Zhang Wuji had unwittingly taken over the world? Am I the one who's cheating, or is he the one who's cheating? Song Qingshu lamented. Seeing that Zhao Min had exposed everything, Zhang Wuji did not quibble. Instead, he smiled and said, Min, as expected, you've seen through everything. That's right, it's just as you said. But in order to unify the world, what are these tricks? Isn't the great Genghis Khan in the hearts of you Mongolians also full of tricks? But the one I like isn't the great Genghis Khan, but the indecisive, kind, and loyal Zhang Wuji. Zhao Min bit her lip so hard that it almost bled. Zhang Wuji's expression finally darkened. You don't have to make yourself sound so noble. Do you really think that I don't know the Mongolians' tricks? What tricks? Zhao Min was stunned. This time, it was her turn to be confused. Zhou Zhuo looked at Zhang Wuji's familiar face, but she could not help but feel a sense of unfamiliarity. She stood there quietly. It was obvious that she was also very interested in what Zhang Wuji had to say. Zhang Wuji said expressionlessly, You keep saying that you abandoned the Mongolians, abandoned the Ruyang mansion, and abandoned your people for me. But what is your request? You want me to abandon the Ming dynasty and abandon the war with the Mongolians. Without my leadership, the Ming dynasty will eventually return to its previous state of disunity. How can it be a match for the Mongolians? Want to be easily swallowed by the Mongolian cavalry in a short period of time? You abandoned everything to follow me. It might seem like it's for love, but to me, it's just a honey trap used by the Mongolians. The Mongolians will lose Princess Xiaomin, and it will not affect their strength at all. But without Zhang Wuji, the Ming dynasty will immediately go from being a great threat to the Mongolians to being nothing to worry about. Looking at the Mongolians, aside from you, who else can think of such a sweet and heart-wrenching trap? Zhao Min's face was pale. She instinctively shook her head and mumbled, I really didn't think about this. Is that so? Zhang Wuji snorted coldly. Since you're willing to abandon everything for love, why didn't you continue to stay by my side after you learned that I would continue to fight against the Mongolians? Instead, you ran back to Mongolia without any hesitation and immediately commanded the elites from the Ruyang mansion. Chapter 423. Zhao Min mumbled, Betray my own people is the best I can do. I really can't turn around and help you deal with them. Is that really the case? Zhang Wuji smiled in disdain. It was obvious that he still thought that Zhao Min was just a honey trap used by the Mongolians. Even Song Qingshu, who was in the distance, nodded in his heart. Even if he cast aside the grudge between him and Zhang Wuji, Song Qingshu's words made a lot of sense. Zhao Min might really be a chess piece of the Mongolians. I can't do anything about it if you think that way. Zhao Min finally regained her proud expression. If I really wanted to use a honey trap on you, why would I need to do it myself? I, Zhao Min, have a high status in Mongolia. If it's not the man I like, even if Genghis Khan personally ordered me to marry him, I won't agree to it. I didn't say that you don't love me. Zhang Wuji snorted. You can help Mongolia get rid of its biggest threat, and you can live with the man you like. Of course, you have no reason to reject it. So that's how you see me in your heart. Zhao Min sighed disheartenedly. I don't want to dwell on this problem anymore. Just treat it as my conspiracy. Song Qingshu was full of doubts. He thought that even if Zhang Wuji really thought that way, there was no need for him to reveal it. Other than completely disappointing Zhao Min, what else could it do? Based on Zhang Wuji's behavior all this while, he should not be such an emotional person. Second question, Zhao Min said with a gloomy expression. Speak. Zhang Wuji's voice had an unquestionable tone. Do you still have the box that I gave you to store the hair clip? There was a hint of hope in Zhao Min's eyes. The box? Zhang Wuji was stunned and fell into deep thought. After a long time, he finally nodded. The golden box that contained the black jade connection ointment? Yes. Seeing that he had been thinking for so long, Zhao Min's heart sank. Let me have a look. After that, she stretched out her white jade-like palm in front of Zhang Wuji. Now, Zhang Wuji looked like he was in a dilemma. I'm always on the move, and it's not convenient to carry such a long box with me, so I left it in the bedroom at the bright top. I'll show it to you the next time you come to the bright top. Zhao Min had an as-expected expression on her face. She felt a chill in her heart. She silently retracted her hand and muttered, You used to always carry that box with you. Zhang Wuji's expression changed slightly. He forced a smile and said, I've said it before. People change, but some things shouldn't change. Zhao Min sighed. One last question. Zhang Wuji said meaningfully, It's not necessarily a good thing to understand some things too clearly. Zhao Min looked determined. There are some things that must be understood. Seeing the two of them talking in riddles, Song Qingshu could not help but be confused. When he heard that Zhao Min was about to ask the last question, he quickly pricked up his ears and listened carefully. Do you remember that you promised to do 3 things for me? Looking at Zhou Zhiruo next to her, Zhao Min seemed to be lost in her memories. Zhou Zhiruo's expression changed slightly. She was the victim of one of the things, and it could be said that it was even more unforgettable than Zhang Wuji. I remember. Zhang Wuji nodded without hesitation. Zhao Min paced back and forth, looking like she had a lot on her mind. The first thing, I asked you to lend me the dragon saber, and you did it. The second thing, I asked you not to marry Zhou Zhiruo in Haozhou City, and you did it. Hearing this, Zhou Zhiruo could not help but snort coldly. The third thing, Zhao Min paused and looked at Zhang Wuji quietly. Do you still remember? Zhang Wuji frowned, but he quickly put on a smile. Of course I remember. What is it? Zhao Min said coldly. You asked me not to be the sect leader of the Ming dynasty, and to live together with you and live like immortals, right? Zhang Wuji said with a smile. Looking at that familiar smile, Zhao Min felt a chill run down her spine, and she subconsciously took a few steps back. Even Zhou Zhiruo took a few steps back at the same time. Zhang Wuji looked at the two women in confusion. What are you doing? Zhao Min sighed. Even sect leader Zhou remembers, but you don't. Zhang Wuji was stunned, and he looked at Zhou Zhiruo with a questioning look. Zhiruo, did I say something wrong? Zhou Zhiruo looked at him in surprise, then looked at Zhao Min, and replied in a deep voice, The third thing Zhao Min asked you to do for her is to draw her eyebrows every day. I was still under the illusion that you were temporarily blinded by power. Zhao Min's tone suddenly changed, and she shouted sternly, Who are you? Zhang Wuji was stunned, and he quickly said with a smile, I'm Zhang Wuji. Who else could I be? Zhao Min shook her head, and her tone was very firm. She said word by word, You are not Zhang Wuji. Hearing this, Song Qingshu almost fell from the tree. Although he had suspected his identity, the 9-yang divine skill and the heaven and earth great shift could not be faked. But Zhao Min was the closest person to him. Not to mention that with her intelligence and strategy, Song Qingshu did not think that she was talking nonsense. Zhou Zhiruo had always felt that Zhang Wuji was a little strange, but because she was more concerned about her relationship with Song Qingshu, she did not think much about it. Now hearing Zhao Min's words, and thinking of Zhang Wuji's changes during this period, she could not help but agree with that terrible guess. After the lion-slaying gathering on Mount Shaoshi, although you did it secretly, I am not an idiot. How could I not know that you secretly went out to see Zhou Zhiruo every night? Zhao Min seemed to be lost in memories, and she said to herself, At first, I thought that you still had feelings for her. Considering that you did not do anything out of line, I pretended to turn a blind eye. Originally, we agreed that after you rescued your adoptive father, the Golden Mane Lion King, You would resign from your position as the cult leader of the Ming dynasty and retire from Jianghu. But after coming down from Mount Shaoshi, you did not say a word about this. I thought that you still had things to deal with in the cult, so I suppressed my doubts and continued to follow you back to Light Peak. Do you know when I began to suspect you? Zhao Min looked coldly at Zhang Wuji. When? Zhang Wuji did not deny it. A blush flashed across her face, and Zhao Min snorted. After coming down from Mount Shaoshi, one night you sneaked into my room. I know Brother Wuji's personality better than anyone else. He is lascivious, but he does not have the guts. If he could do something like that in the middle of the night, he would not have hesitated for so long between the four of us. Zhang Wuji snorted expressionlessly. So that night, when you said shyly that you did not want to lose your first time in the inn and insisted on returning to Light Peak to give it to me, you lied to me? Otherwise, how could I have the chance to escape? Zhao Min smiled sadly. Obviously, she still had lingering fears about the situation at that time. I did not know where the real Brother Wuji had gone. Even if I had exposed your identity at that time, the people of the Ming dynasty would not have believed the words of a little witch like me. So, I could only pretend to be a snake with you and find a chance to escape back to Mongolia. You suspected me just because I sneaked into your room that night? I have always been a hot-blooded man. You are so beautiful, and we are in love. Is it strange that I could not help but look for you at night? Zhang Wuji said in a deep voice. Sigh, who told me to think too much? Zhao Min sighed faintly. I was born in the year of the fox, and I'm naturally suspicious. Coupled with your previous abnormalities, I came up with a lot of guesses. Before I figured out the truth, how could I be so stupid as to give my body to you so easily? Zhou Zhiruo's face heated up. She thought about when Zhang Wuji came to look for her on Mount Shaoshi. Although she felt that there was something wrong with him, she still almost did it. Fortunately, she had insisted at that time. If she had really made a wrong decision, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Zhou Zhiruo's pretty face suddenly turned pale. After returning to the Ryong mansion, I was able to use Mongolia's huge intelligence network to help me investigate this matter. Zhao Min continued. The results really surprised me. You hooked up with Zhou Zhiruo. As for the others, whether it was you sent someone to find the 9th princess of the former Ming dynasty's Emperor Chongzhen and made her the holy maiden of the Ming dynasty, or you rescued Ren Wuxing from the Plum Manor in West Lake and helped him regain the position of the Sun Moon sect's leader and seize the opportunity to control the Sun Moon sect, or you befriended Hua Qingtong, the daughter of the Muzwolin tribe's leader of the Hui tribe in the western region. You even planned to marry the Hui tribe's first beauty, Princess Xiangxiang, in order to unite the Hui tribe's power to resist the Mongols together. No matter which one it is, it can be considered as a great talent and bold strategy. Even I have to praise it. However, Zhao Min changed the topic. However, these things are not what my brother Wuji would do. Zhang Wuji frowned. It was obvious that he was greatly surprised. You actually investigated in such detail. I used the Mongolian intelligence network and took advantage of an unsuspecting person. Naturally, it was not too difficult to find out about these things, Zhao Min said lightly. I said that before I got married, I wanted to go back to the Ryong mansion to see my father and brother. I'm afraid that was exactly what you wanted at that time, wasn't it? With me by your side, watching your every move, many of your plans could not be carried out. Moreover, according to my calculations, you seem to be planning to go to the Muzwolin tribe to meet the Hua Qingtong sisters at that time. More and more evidence appeared in front of me. I finally understood that you're not my brother Wuji. However, what puzzled me the most was that your 9 Yang divine skill and your heaven and earth great shift were not fake. Moreover, the characteristics of your body seemed to be exactly the same as brother Wuji. Therefore, I still had a glimmer of hope in my heart. I asked you 3 questions just now, but your answers convinced me that you are not him. Zhao Min was resolute, and her tone was very firm. During this period of time, I used all my power, but I still could not find out where the real brother Wuji went. If I'm not wrong, he should be no longer in this world, right? Zhao Min's tone suddenly became very sad. Zhou Zhiruo was stunned on the spot with a shocked expression. It was obvious that she did not have time to digest this explosive news. Song Qing-shu, who was on the tree far away, had a gleam in his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Chapter 424. Is it possible that this Zhang Wuji is a transmigrator like me? Song Qing's eyes flickered. This unlucky bastard, who told him to dress like Zhao Min's man out of everyone else. Zhao Min is probably the smartest woman in the entire gene system. It would be strange if she didn't see through my disguise. Fortunately, my Zhou Jiruo isn't as smart as her. Otherwise, my identity might be exposed. Song Qing wasn't worried that his secret would be discovered by Zhao Min. After all, Zhao Min and Song Qing hadn't talked much before. She didn't know him as well as she did Zhang Wuji. Even if his behavior was a little abnormal, she probably wouldn't think that Song Qing had changed into a different person. It's better for my wife to be stupid. Song Qing's heart was full of emotions. He secretly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and looked at Zhang Wuji in the distance with a gloating expression. Clap, clap, clap. Female sign, dollar, female sign. Zhang Wuji applauded and laughed. What a wonderful deduction. Unfortunately, I'm Zhang Wuji. If you still don't believe me, you can ask Jiruo. She stabbed me with her heavenly sword at Guangming Peak. She is very familiar with my wound. Seeing Zhao Min looking at her inquisitively, Zhou nodded slightly. The wound is indeed correct. Zhao Min frowned, but her heart was in turmoil. Could it be that I guessed wrong? But all the evidence shows that he isn't my brother Wuji. But why is his physical characteristics and martial arts the same as brother Wuji's? Zhang Wuji looked at her gently. Min, I know that because I've always been against the Mongolians and I've been in contact with Zhao and the two women from the Muswolan tribe. I don't blame you for holding a grudge against me. But don't you think your words are too much? When did he start to change? Zhao Min had a flash of inspiration and remembered something that she had almost forgotten. Zhang Wuji still wanted to say something, but Zhao Min suddenly said, at the lion-slaying convention, when Brother Wuji faced the Vajra subduing demon hoop of Shaolin Temple's third crossing, he suffered chi deviation. A sharp light flashed in Zhang Wuji's eyes, but he immediately regained his calm. So what? When Brother Wuji was possessed by the devil, he seemed to have recovered very quickly, so we didn't take it seriously. Zhao Min couldn't help but feel a pain in her heart. I heard that the Far West region has a kind of soul-summoning magic. Now that I think about it, you took the opportunity to invade Brother Wuji's body at that time. Zhang Wuji snorted coldly. What a joke. I'm the cult leader of the Ming Dynasty, and I have the all-seeing divine power. Who could take my body? Brother Wuji has cultivated the 9 yang divine power to the highest level, so it's reasonable to say that he won't be invaded by evil spirits. Zhao Min sighed faintly. But I remember Brother Wuji once said that when he practiced the heaven and earth great shift, when he reached the 7th level in one go, he found that the incantation for the 7th level was wrong no matter how he practiced it. He thought that it was because the creator of the heaven and earth great shift didn't have enough power and could only practice to the 6th level. The incantation for the 7th level was imagined by the creator out of thin air. Zhang Wuji said expressionlessly, "What are you trying to say?" Zhao Min's gaze suddenly became sharp, and she said coldly, "I'm afraid that the incantation for the 7th level wasn't made up out of thin air by the original creator because his power wasn't enough, but it was used by the original creator for reincarnation in the future. When Brother Wuji practiced the incantation for the 7th level, your soul lurked in. But Brother Wuji's divine power was unparalleled, so you never found a chance to attack him. It wasn't until Brother Wuji was forced into Qigong deviation at the lion-slaying convention that you took advantage of the situation." As soon as she said this, everyone's expression changed. Song Qing's thoughts turned quickly. So that's how it is. In this way, all the abnormalities can be explained. Why did the gentle and honest Zhang Wuji change so much? Why did Zhang Wuji, who is extremely skilled in martial arts, get taken advantage of? Zhang Wuji suddenly laughed somewhat crazily. Although I knew you were very smart, I didn't expect you to be so smart. You were able to restore the truth from such a small clue. Hearing him admit it, Zhou Zhiruo's heart was filled with mixed feelings. She subconsciously grasped the long whip at her waist. A trace of inexplicable sadness flashed in Zhao Min's eyes. She asked coldly, "Who are you?" The light is generally pure. Eternal happiness is silent and inactive. He receives joy without worry. If he speaks of suffering, there's no place. He receives joy and light. If he speaks of sickness, there's no place. If he can live in the country, he will have no worries. Everything is solemn and pure. All evils are not pure. There is no origin. Happiness fills Chang Quantai. If he speaks of Xiangling, there is no place. Zhang Wuji spread out his hands, and his lips moved slightly. He recited a passage that seemed like a poem, but not a poem, like a speech, but not a speech. A layer of solemnity gradually appeared on his face. The air behind him blurred, as if forming a sacred halo. His tone also became incomparably ethereal. I am the ruler of the kingdom of light. The world calls me the Lord of Light. Ming Zun. Zhao Min was stunned. You are the founder of the Ming dynasty. That's right. Zhang Wuji nodded. In the past, I devoted my entire life to introducing the dualism of good and evil to the world. I created a world of light and bliss, but unfortunately, my life was too short. When I learned that my time was almost up, I created the divine skill heaven and earth great shift and passed it down to the successive cult masters of Ming cult. As long as someone can practice to the 7th level, his body will be strong enough to accommodate my surging soul power. I will then be able to take the opportunity to reincarnate. I just didn't expect that after nearly 1,000 years, no one in the Ming dynasty could break through the 6th level. The former leader of the Ming dynasty, Yang Dingtian, who dominated the world, only practiced to the 4th level before he died of Qigong deviation. Heaven does not disappoint those who wait. There is finally a young man in the Central Plains who has practiced to the 7th level of the heaven and earth great shift. I have waited for the day to see the light again. This is really a perfect body. The yang energy in the body is endless. It is even better than my body in the past. Zhao Min gritted her teeth and asked, what about my brother Wuji's soul? Zhou Zhiruo also had a gloomy face as she glared at the other party. Naturally, it was fused by me. Zhang Wuji laughed. It took me a lot of effort to digest this powerful soul. It was only a few days ago that I completely fused with him. Now that I think about it, if it wasn't for his Qigong deviation, which left a flaw in his soul, it would be hard to say who would be the winner. I'm going to kill you, Zhao Min said through gritted teeth. Kill me? Zhang Wuji seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. Why do you want to kill me? Although I'm venerated Ming, I'm also Zhang Wuji. Our bodies are exactly the same, and I still have most of his memories. Compared to your brother Wuji, I only have more of venerated Ming's memories. You're not him. You're not him. Zhao Min shook her head dejectedly. Brother Wuji would never forget his promise to draw her eyebrows. Although the person in front of her didn't look much different from Zhang Wuji in terms of appearance, memory, and martial arts, she knew in her heart that the real Zhang Wuji was already dead. Or rather, his soul had been devoured by this venerated Ming. Zhang Wuji looked to the west, and his gaze suddenly became deep and distant. All these years, the priests of the Persian central religion have been praying to my holy statue, begging me to send down a miracle to help them defeat those devils from the Mongolian plains. For thousands of years, it's thanks to their power of faith that my soul has been immortal. Therefore, once I succeeded in seizing their bodies, I began to plan to deal with the Mongolians. I planned to help these disciples and their disciples. If it wasn't for this, no matter how smart you are, you wouldn't have discovered my flaws. Zhao Min said coldly, if you don't want people to know, then don't do it. Zhang Wuji smiled. So what if you know? Zhao Min and Zhou Zhiruo took a step back at the same time. You want to silence us? That won't be necessary. Zhang Wuji smiled. Both of you are rare beauties in the world. I've been lonely for thousands of years, so I need someone to serve me. It's a pity that my holy maiden is far away in the Persian central religion. Distant water can't quench the present thirst. I'll promote you to be my holy maidens." When the two women understood what he meant, they couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. "You're delusional. Don't you love the owner of this body deeply? My body and memory are exactly the same as his. Why are you so resistant?" Zhang Wuji asked in confusion. "Bah," Zhao Min spat. "Because your hearts are different." Zhang Wuji didn't take it seriously. "Since you don't listen to my kind advice, don't blame me for being forceful. Lowly woman from the Mongolian grassland, I'll turn you into the most lowly slave and let your people see your worst side." Song Qing was still in shock. When he heard Zhang Wuji's words, he couldn't help but feel happy. This revered Ming saw his people being bullied by the Mongolians, so he couldn't help but vent his anger on Zhao Min, thinking of the honorable princess being turned into a sex slave. Song Qing trembled. The scene was so beautiful that he had a nosebleed just thinking about it. Zhou Zhuo subconsciously stood in front of Zhao Min and said resentfully, "You're usually so smart. Why are you so stupid today? Since you want to expose him, why don't you bring your masters here? Go quickly. I'll help you stall him for a while." Zhao Min was stunned. "Why did you save me?" She knew that Zhou Zhuo always wanted to get rid of her. She didn't expect that Zhou Zhuo would stand in front of her. "If someone else wanted to kill you, I wouldn't care, but he can't. He killed Brother Wuji." Zhou Zhuo looked coldly at revered Ming, who was not far away. Although Zhou Zhuo had decided to cut off her feelings, she couldn't forget her feelings so easily. Moreover, she had just learned that the real Zhang Wuji had died. Subconsciously, she wanted to avenge him. "I'm not leaving. I want to kill him to avenge Brother Wuji." Zhao Min shook her head stubbornly and took out a short sword from her waist. Zhou Zhuo said angrily, with the terrifying aura he showed, "Even if you and I join hands, we're no match for him. If both of us are trapped here, who will spread the news? Who will avenge Brother Wuji?" Seeing that Zhao Min was still hesitating, Zhou Zhuo quickly said, "He's full of hatred for Mongolia. If you fall into his hands, you won't have a good ending. I'm different. I'm still useful to him. He won't hurt me for the time being. After you escape, gather the experts under your command to kill him. Oh, by the way, inform my husband. With his martial arts, he should be able to help you." "Who's your husband?" Zhao Min was stunned and couldn't react for a moment. "Song Qing." Zhou Zhuo answered while concentrating on guarding against Zhang Wuji's sudden attack from not far away. Zhao Min rolled her eyes and said with a smile, "You should tell him yourself later." "What?" Zhou Zhuo was confused. "Are the two of you done whispering?" Zhang Wuji chuckled. "What a good sisterly love. I don't think you two need to fight. Neither of you will be able to leave tonight." "Not necessarily." A clear male voice came from afar. A figure slowly walked over. Chapter 425. I was wondering which expert was hiding there. I didn't expect it to be you. Zhang Wuji didn't look surprised at all when he saw Song Qingshu walk out. I thought that Zhang Wuji's temperament had changed. I didn't expect that venerated Ming had taken over his body. Song Qingshu smiled faintly. "You're here too." Zhou Zhuo was shocked when she saw Song Qingshu's appearance under the moonlight. Zhao Min forced a smile. "I just said that you'll be glad that you made your attitude clear tonight." Zhou Zhuo's expression was uncertain. She thought that if she had behaved ambiguously with Zhang Wuji just now, she would be in a really bad situation right now. "Zhuo, I'm glad that you thought of me first when you were in danger." Song Qingshu came to Zhou Zhuo's side and held her smooth, jade-like hand. In front of Zhao Min and Zhang Wuji, Zhou Zhuo subconsciously withdrew her hand and said unnaturally, "Who missed you? I'm just looking for you to help me take revenge." "You're obviously taking revenge for your ex-boyfriend." Song Qingshu's face didn't show any anger. He said with a smile, "But I'm broad-minded. It's not a big deal to help you take revenge for your ex-boyfriend." "You." Zhou Zhuo was so angry that she turned her head to the side. Looking at the two of them bickering, Zhao Min felt a sense of loss in her heart. She thought about how sweet she and Brother Wuji used to be. Thinking of this, Zhao Min suddenly came back to her senses. She looked at venerated Ming and said, Song Qing-shu, if you help me kill this old monster, I can agree to any of your conditions. Any conditions? Song Qing-shu's eyebrows twitched a few times. It was obvious that he was imagining some dirty scenes. Zhang Wuji laughed. Are you three done flirting? You're overestimating yourself if you want to kill me. Is that so? Song Qing-shu revealed a strange smile, and his figure suddenly disappeared from where he stood. Zhang Wuji's pupils suddenly contracted. It turned out that Song Qing-shu's finger was carrying a sharp sword energy and was only 3 inches away from his neck. The two figures touched and then separated. Song Qing-shu had already returned to his original spot. Looking at the blood on his finger, he sighed inwardly. Zhang Wuji touched the bone-deep wound on his face and couldn't help but frown. I still underestimated your martial arts. I didn't expect you to grow to this extent in just 1 or 2 years. I say, venerated Ming, what? You've lived too long that your brain isn't working? It's not the first time we fought. I don't know what makes you so confident. We fought before. Howbeit, we fought. Venerated. B. Lowly ant. Do you think that was my true strength last time? You lowly ant. Do you think that was my real strength last time? Zhang Wuji spread his arms. His clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. The hairband on his head snapped, and his long hair fluttered in the air. Zhang Wuji spread his arms. His clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. The hairband on his head was broken by the force, and his long hair fluttered in the air. The Persian Ming dynasty's sacred fire insignia. Song Qing-shu's expression turned solemn. In the original work, Zhang Wuji had mastered the 9-yang divine skill, practiced the heaven and earth great shift to the 6th level, and was taught the Tai Chi fist and Tai Chi sword by Zhang Sanfeng. Despite this, he was still beaten by the Persian wind, cloud, and 3 emissaries. Apart from Zhang Wuji's actual combat ability, it was also because the sacred fire insignia used by the Persian wind, cloud, and 3 emissaries were too strange. Speaking of which, Song Qing-shu had fought with revered Ming twice, but each time, revered Ming had used Zhang Wuji's own martial arts. Therefore, Song Qing-shu had been thinking about how to break revered Ming's the heaven and earth great shift and 9-yang divine technique. Now that he had encountered the sacred flame insignia, Song Qing-shu felt like he was going to vomit blood. Go away. I may not have the time to protect you later, Song Qing-shu said quickly, shielding the 2 girls behind him. Zhou Zhiruo shook her head and said, I'll stay and help you. Song Qing-shu knew that Zhou Zhiruo's martial arts skill was not the same as it was in the past. Her study of the 9E manual had reached an extremely high level. Although she could not compare to Guo Jing's attainment in the 9E manual, which he had painstakingly practiced for decades, compared to other people in Jianghu who had practiced the 9E manual, her level of attainment would not be at a disadvantage. However, Song Qing-shu still did not intend to let her intervene. After all, his opponent this time was an old monster like venerated Ming, and he did not know how many trump cards he had. It was too risky for Zhou Zhiruo to intervene. You help me by the side and take care of Zhao Min while you're at it. Song Qing-shu knew that Zhou Zhiruo might not listen to him if he said it directly. Therefore, he had to put it in another way. You won't get her, right? Seeing that Song Qing-shu still did not forget about Zhao Min, Zhou Zhiruo suddenly had a strange expression on her face. During this period of time, the women around Song Qing-shu were simply dazzling her eyes. Moreover, the 2 of them had clearly come together. If Song Qing-shu really had something going on with Zhao Min, Zhou Zhiruo would not find it strange at all. In fact, Zhou Zhiruo even had a kind of secret joy in her heart. She had lost to Zhao Min in the fight for Zhang Wuji, and she had always been very unwilling. Now, the tables had turned, and she had the advantage of Song Qing-shu's official wife. It was time to let Zhao Min taste the bitter taste of a loser. Before Song Qing-shu could answer, Zhao Min blushed and could not help but scold. What nonsense are you talking about? Hey, be careful. A piece of Sheng Huoling flew noiselessly toward Song Qing-shu from the darkness. Zhao Min saw that Song Qing-shu's attention was on her, and Zhou Zhiruo so she quickly drew her sword and slashed at it. Clang! The long sword in Zhao Min's hand was broken. She felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and a strange flush appeared on her face. It was obvious that she had suffered a serious internal injury. Song Qingshu did not have time to check on her injury, and a large number of sacred Hualing had already attacked him. He quickly pulled out his wooden sword and stood in front of the two women to protect them. Every time the wooden sword came into contact with a sacred Hualing, Song Qingshu felt his breath churning. He could not help but be shocked. Zhang Wuji had mastered the 9-yang divine skill, and there were only a few people in the world whose internal energy was more profound than his. He did not expect that this so-called revered Ming's internal energy was actually stronger than Zhang Wuji's when he was at his peak. He had only hit the sacred Hualing about a dozen times, but he already felt a numbing sensation in his hand. However, Song Qingshu had practiced the most profound martial arts of the Tibetan Buddhism sect, and the double cultivation with a woman had made the progress of his internal energy twice as fast. Although he was still not as good as revered Ming, the difference was not so great that it was hopeless. What troubled Song Qingshu even more was the strange attack trajectory of the sacred Hualing. It should be known that he was able to calmly deflect the arrowheads one by one when thousands of swords were shot at him at the same time. But now, there were only 6 sacred Hualing, and it was enough to make him flustered. There were many times when he thought that he had calculated the trajectory of the sacred Hualing and thrust his sword ahead of time. But in the end, the sacred Hualing seemed to suddenly defy the laws of physics and changed its trajectory at the last minute, causing Song Qingshu's sword to stab empty air, which was extremely uncomfortable. Moreover, even if Song Qingshu struck the sacred Hualing would take the opportunity to attack him from behind after being hit. Be careful, all of you. Song Qingshu had no time to care about the situation behind him, so he could only warn them verbally. Zhou Zhiruo nodded. With a flick of the long whip in her hand, a sacred Hualing that was flying toward Zhao Min was knocked away. Zhao Min's little face was pale. She looked at the sacred Hualing in the distance with lingering fear and could not help but smile gratefully at Zhou Zhiruo. Song Qingshu knew that he could not continue to be beaten passively like this. If this went on, even if he was not killed by the sacred Hualing, he would die of exhaustion sooner or later. Both of you, hold on for a while. Song Qingshu let out a loud roar. He gave up on striking down the sacred Hualing that was flying all over the sky in front of him, and with a flash, he charged toward venerated Ming who was in the pavilion. He knew that, without him blocking most of the attacks from the sacred Hualing, Zhou Zhiruo and Zhao Min would not be able to withstand the attacks from the sacred Hualing alone. Song Qingshu was actually gambling. According to what venerated Ming had said before, Song Qingshu was like an old lecher who had been thirsty for thousands of years. He was betting that venerated Ming would never be willing to hurt these two outstanding beauties. Exerting the white python whip technique to the extreme, Zhou Zhiruo managed to block all the sacred Hualing that was flying all over the sky at a distance of 10 feet. However, every time the sacred Hualing came into contact with the long whip in her hand, her face would turn paler. Just when it seemed that she could not hold on any longer, the sacred Hualing that was flying all over the sky disappeared and flew toward the pavilion. Glancing at the situation of the two ladies from the corner of his eye, Song Qingshu smiled in relief. He had indeed won his gamble. He did not need to stay in one place to withstand venerated Ming's 6 attacks. He could finally fully unleash the advantage of his speed. Song Qingshu's silhouettes flickered in and out of existence, surrounding venerated Ming in the center. A moment ago, he was attacking venerated Ming's temple from the upper right side, and the next moment, he appeared on the ground, aiming at venerated Ming's hamstring. Due to the extreme speed, in venerated Ming's eyes, Song Qingshu's silhouettes were all around him. Furthermore, they were not mere phantoms. Every attack from his silhouettes was real. If he was not careful, he would be hit in his vital parts. Venerated Ming had created the entire martial arts system of the Ming dynasty. Even the term martial arts grandmaster could not describe his realm. If it were any other top-notch expert, They would have been killed by Song Qingshu's sword aura that pierced through their hearts and killed them. However, venerated Ming relied on his amazing cultivation base and combat awareness to withstand the attacks. There were even a few counterattacks that almost hit Song Qingshu. But because Song Qingshu was too fast, all that was destroyed were his afterimages. Venerated Ming was both shocked and furious. He quickly summoned back the sacred flame insignia to protect himself, and finally managed to turn the tide. The entire pavilion had long since been smashed into smithereens by the crisscrossing sword aura and the sacred flame insignia that filled the sky. Zhou Zhiruo and Zhao Min could no longer be distinguished from each other. All that could be seen were two afterimages entangling with each other. Wherever they passed, the big trees would collapse, the floorboards would shatter inch by inch, and the flying leaves would turn into dust before they could even get close to them. The two ladies looked at each other in shock. Zhao Min asked worriedly, "Who do you think will win? Who do you think will win?" Zhou Zhiruo asked her in return. The two ladies had never been on good terms. Upon hearing her words, Zhao Min frowned. "Aren't you talking nonsense? Venerated Ming's body belongs to your Zhang Wuji after all. He also has most of Zhang Wuji's memories. Actually, if you turn a blind eye to it, he's no different from Zhang Wuji. Do you really want him to die?" Zhou Zhiruo smiled maliciously. "In my heart, Brother Wuji is already dead. That person is his murderer," Zhao Min said coldly, her expression cold. Chapter 426. Can't you go and help him? Zhao Min knew that her skills were only enough to deal with the second or third-rate figures in the martial arts world, and Zhou Zhiruo had won the title of #1 in the world during the Lion Slaying Festival, even though it was an exaggerated title. Looking at the two blurry figures, Zhou Zhiruo shook her head. "It's not that I don't want to help, but I can't. They're too fast. If I force myself to help, I'll only be a burden to him." You're so powerful when you bully me, but now that I really need you to help, you're so weak. Useless." Zhao Min curled her lips in disdain and rolled her eyes. Zhou Zhiruo replied calmly, "As long as I can bully you, that's enough." "You." Zhao Min was choked by her words, and she snorted coldly. "Since you can't do it, then watch me." "You?" Zhou Zhiruo looked Zhao Min up and down, and finally smiled disdainfully. "I'll give you a handicap of 2 hands, but you can't even defeat me, and you still want to help? Big breasts are indeed brainless," Zhao Min said mockingly. "Not all problems need to be solved with martial arts." Glancing at Zhao Min's bulging chest, and then looking down at her own chest that was obviously a size smaller, Zhou Zhiruo blushed. Before she could react, she heard Zhao Min shout at the two people who were fighting. "That, venerated Ming, your disciples and disciples in Persia have almost all been slaughtered by the Mongolian army. Why are you still in the mood to stir up trouble in the Central Plains?" "Nonsense, that brat Huashan just sent someone to seriously injure the Mongolian army's western expedition, General Su Liu, and he took the opportunity to join forces with the Egyptian Mamelukes to annihilate 20,000 Mongolian elites and even behead the Mongolian vanguard, General Buwa." Venerated Ming sneered. Although the Persian Ming dynasty was nominally worshipping Xiao Zhao as the cult master, the real power of the cult was still in the hands of the great elder, Huashan. Huashan was the old man in the mountains who made the European countries tremble with fear. "How long ago was that?" Zhao Min smiled disdainfully. "You've been running around in the Central Plains since you left Bright Summit. I'm afraid that you haven't been able to keep up with the news, have you? Because Su Liu was seriously injured by an assassin, our great Khan, in his rage, gathered 100,000 elite Mongolian cavalry and razed the vulture's nest, the headquarters of your Ming dynasty's Persian cult, to the ground. Huashan saw that the situation was hopeless, so he led the remaining troops of the Ming dynasty to surrender. However, the great Khan was enraged by their previous assassination attempt, so he ordered for Huashan and his men to be executed." "What?" Venerated Ming was shocked and angry at the same time. It was obvious that this news was too unexpected. In his plan, he needed the Persian central religion and the Ming dynasty of Middle-earth to cooperate. If the Persian central religion were to be destroyed, No matter how many forces he controlled in Middle-earth, he would not be able to do anything alone. Because he was distracted, venerated Ming did not manage to evade Song Qingshu's new round of attacks. A few sword marks appeared on his body. He turned pale with fright and quickly focused on dealing with the attacks. After stabilizing the situation, venerated Ming cursed angrily. That Mongolian little demoness. She's obviously trying to distract me on purpose. The Persian central religion is hidden in the mountains, and there's a bunker every few hundred meters. It's easy to defend and hard to attack. For hundreds of years, all the feudal lords of Europe have wanted to get rid of it, but the vulture's nest still stands tall in the mountains. Even if you have 1,000,000 troops, let alone 100,000, what's the use? The Persian central religion of the Ming dynasty was located in the vulture's nest, and there were countless bunkers scattered in the surrounding dozens of miles. For hundreds of years, no enemy had ever succeeded in breaking into the vulture's nest. They could not even get close to the vulture's nest. Therefore, when venerated Ming came back to his senses, he naturally did not believe what Zhao Min had said. You've been pretending to be Brother Wuji for so long, and only now do you realize that I'm a little demoness? The corner of Zhao Min's lips curled up. What you said is the truth, but why don't you think about why the feudal lords of Europe can't do anything to you? Isn't it because they have too few troops and are too far away from the Persian central religion? Zhao Min put her hands behind her back and said as she walked, "How many soldiers can the feudal lords of Europe muster in a single castle? Of course, he doesn't need to be afraid of Huashan. Our great Mongolian empire used to sweep all the way to the banks of the Rhine with just a few 10,000 men. Now, for Huashan, we've sent out an unprecedented 100,000 soldiers. Do you really think that the vulture's nest can't be broken?" Venerated Ming's heart was filled with uncertainty. Ever since he had successfully taken over Zhongwuji, he had led the Ming dynasty and fought against the Mongolian army. He naturally knew how terrifying the Mongolian cavalry was. If Temujin really did send 100,000 elite cavalry to attack the vulture's nest might not be able to withstand it. Venerated Ming's heart was filled with worry, and his movements inevitably became sluggish. How could Song Qingshu let go of such a good opportunity? Taking advantage of the situation, he attacked with his sword faster than the last. The sword aura filled the sky, as if there were dozens of Song Qingshus attacking venerated Ming at the same time. Venerated Ming suddenly realized that there was no way he could turn the situation around. And at most 100 moves, he would probably die on the spot. "Little demoness, die!" Venerated Ming roared. He no longer used the holy flame insignia to protect him, but instead threw all of his power at Zhao Min. The holy flame insignia had an aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth. Not to mention Zhao Min's delicate body. Even hard granite would be crushed into powder if it came into contact with the holy flame insignia. Song Qingshu had fought with venerated Ming for so long, so he naturally knew this very well. If he were to ignore Zhao Min and continue his attack, even if venerated Ming did not die, he would be gravely injured. However, Zhao Min would definitely die. In a split second, Song Qingshu could not afford to hesitate. As if subconsciously, Song Qingshu gave up on attacking venerated Ming. With a flash of his body, he swung his sword at the holy flame insignia in the air. Venerated Ming revealed a strange smile. With a wave of his long sleeves, the holy flame insignia seemed to have received an order and suddenly dispersed. They spun rapidly and slammed toward Song Qingshu's body from all directions. Song Qingshu was worried that he would not be able to save Zhao Min in time, so he had pushed his speed to the limit. At that moment, he had used up all of his strength and could no longer dodge in midair. He barely managed to deflect 3 holy flame insignia, but the other 3 holy flame insignia landed heavily on his body. Song Qingshu spat out a mouthful of blood. Before he could catch his breath, venerated Ming's palm had already landed on his back. Song Qingshu felt as if all of his internal organs had been shattered and the genuine qi in his body had almost collapsed. He quickly swung his sword backward. Venerated Ming's pupils constricted, and he quickly retreated several feet. Looking at the several bloody holes in front of him, he could not help but turn pale with fright. What kind of sword technique is this? Song Qingshu coughed out another mouthful of blood and shook his head with a bitter smile. He had hurriedly used the 10,000 returning swords when he was seriously injured. Sure enough, its power had been greatly reduced. Venerated Ming's whole body was covered in wounds, but he had managed to avoid all of his vital parts. The injuries he had sustained were only superficial wounds, unlike him, who had exhausted the last of his genuine qi to use the 10,000 returning swords. Now he had completely lost the ability to fight. Venerated Ming was obviously aware of all of this and could not help but laugh. It turned out that when he realized that he would be controlled by Song Qingshu if he continued to fight, he had decisively given up on his own defense and used the Sacred Flame insignia to attack Zhao Min, who was not far away. In fact, he was also betting that if Song Qingshu did not save Zhao Min, he would only die faster. However, he was an outstanding person after all. He knew that if he took the gamble, he would still have a chance to turn the situation around. If he did not take the gamble, he would definitely die. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. When the two ladies came to their senses, Song Qingshu had already spat out a mouthful of blood and was half kneeling on the ground. If not for the wooden sword in his hand supporting most of his weight, it was very likely that he would already be lying on the ground. The two women's countenance changed at the same time. One after the other, they ran to his side. Zhou Zhuo's Qinggong was superior, but Zhao Min was closer. Almost at the same time, they arrived at Song Qingshu's side, one on the left, the other on the right. Zhao Min, oh Zhao Min, you keep saying that you love Zhang Wuji, but you've already fallen in love with someone else. Venerated Ming knew that Song Qingshu's injuries would definitely not recover without a few years of rest. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to attack. He first adjusted his chaotic internal breath before doing anything else. You're slandering me. Zhao Min was so angry that her whole body was trembling. However, her heart had already turned cold. Now that things had come to this, the three of them would probably not be able to escape death tonight. She could not help but secretly regret that she should have brought a few more people with her. If Daoist Baisang, Jingang Faction Master, or Jinluan Fuang were by her side, the situation would not have been so bad. Everything was because Zhao Min subconsciously did not want the news of Zhang Wuji's accident to be known by outsiders. According to her long-term observation, she judged that Song Qingshu's martial arts were above Daoist Baisang's, and definitely not weaker than that fake Zhang Wuji's. Moreover, even if he was not a match for him, with Song Qingshu's top-notch lightness skill when he brought her to Kaifeng to seek medical treatment, it would not be a problem for him to bring her away safely. Unfortunately, she never expected that Song Qingshu would give up his absolute advantage in order to save her. Instead, he was seriously injured by that fake Zhang Wuji. In this way, no one could escape. Why did you come back to save me? Zhao Min wiped the tears on her cheeks as she scolded. I'm more than happy to exchange my life for his. Unfortunately, I can't bear to see you die. Song Qingshu sighed softly. Just now, when he saw revered Ming use the trick of besieging Wei to rescue Zhao, he knew that there was definitely a trap. Unfortunately, he could not just watch as Zhao Min died. In his previous life, Zhao Min and Ren Yingying were the two women that Song Qingshu loved the most in the Golden Book, especially Zhao Min. She was intelligent and charming, and had a noble status, but she had the courage to abandon everything for love. After coming to this almost illusory world, Song Qingshu finally saw the princess who, I just want to force myself, with his own eyes. Unfortunately, her fate at the beginning was too miserable. She had no time for romance and had to fight for survival and revenge. What was more coincidental was that Zhao Min was the woman of his enemy. After traveling in Jianghu for several years, Song Qingshu and Zhao Min had very little interaction. Compared to Zhou Zhuo, who loved and hated each other, Xia Qingqing, who had gone through hardships, and Icy Snow, who helped each other in difficult times, Song Qingshu's feelings for Zhao Min were not that deep. However, when he saw that her life was hanging by a thread, he disregarded his own safety to save her. Perhaps it was because Zhao Min represented a dream from his previous life. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Zhou Zhiruo's face darkened. However, seeing that he was dying, it was not good for her to lose her temper. She could only glare at Zhao Min and scold. "Look what you have done." Chapter 427. Seeing that Zhou Zhiruo was blaming her, Zhao Min also became angry. "What does it have to do with me?" Zhou Zhiruo transferred her true qi into Song Qingshu's body to heal him, but she felt like it was like a clay ox entering the sea. She became even angrier. "If you didn't think that you were smart, why would venerated Ming notice you? And Song Qingshu wouldn't have been seriously injured to save you." Zhao Min was speechless for a moment. She couldn't help but say, I just wanted to help. If you want to help, you should stay away from them." Zhou Zhiruo frowned. Hey. Were you guys enemies in your previous lives? Why are you still quarreling at a time like this?" Song Qingshu coughed and said speechlessly, "Humph." The two girls turned their faces away at the same time. If Zhang Wuji's spirit in heaven saw the two women who loved him deeply falling in love with someone else, I wonder what he would think. Venerated Ming finished circulating his energy and felt that he had almost recovered. Seeing the three of them flirting, he couldn't help but mock them. "Bah!" Zhao Min spat. "I don't know what you ate, but your mouth is so smelly." Venerated Ming chuckled. "Whether my mouth is smelly or not, you'll know after you taste it." Zhao Min's pretty face turned red and white. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She came from a noble family and had countless experts under her command. She had never been flirted with by a man like this. Zhou Zhiruo stood up and tightened her grip on the long whip. She said to Zhao Min indifferently, "Take Song Qingshu and leave. I'll help you guys for a while." Zhao Min was stunned. "Then aren't you?" Zhou Zhiruo said coldly. "Can you stop talking nonsense? I can't delay him for long." Zhao Min gritted her teeth and put Song Qingshu on her shoulder. Just as she was about to take her away, Song Qingshu gently pushed her away. "Go by yourself." Hearing his words, a strange look flashed across Zhou Zhiruo's face. "Why don't you leave?" Song Qingshu smiled gently. "How can I let my woman fight to the death while I run away?" Zhou Zhiruo's heart trembled, but her face remained expressionless. "Do you know that if you can successfully leave, you can still avenge me in the future?" "I know." Song Qingshu nodded. "But I can't do it if I have to sacrifice you for my own survival. If worst comes to worst, I'll stay behind and die with you. Don't tell me you don't welcome me?" Zhou Zhiruo's body trembled slightly. She took a deep breath and said, "Okay." Zhao Min looked at Song Qingshu and then looked at Zhou Zhiruo. Seeing the resolute look on their faces, she couldn't help but stomp her feet. "Well, this happened because of me. Since you don't want to leave, I'll accompany you to the end." Clap, clap, clap. Venerated Ming clapped his hands and said, "What a touching scene. But, little Mongolian girl, the husband and wife have decided to live and die together. Don't you feel ashamed of yourself?" Zhao Min's face turned red. She subconsciously explained, "Anyway, now that I know Brother Wuji has been killed by you, and there's no hope of revenge, it's better to go down and find Brother Wuji as soon as possible. I hope he hasn't drunk Meng Po's soup." Venerated Ming smiled disdainfully. "As a Mongolian princess, you should believe in the everlasting heaven. How dare you talk about the ghosts and gods of the Han people? You are indeed a rebellious little demoness. But if you want to die, it won't be that easy. I've already said that I'll turn you into a slave and torture you day and night. Only then will I be able to relieve my hatred for the Mongolians for killing my people." Zhao Min's beautiful face turned pale. She whispered to Zhou, "Hey, don't you want to kill me? If you can't do it later, just kill me first." Zhou Zhiruo couldn't help but look at her. She asked curiously, "I may not have the time to kill you later. Why don't you kill yourself now?" Zhao Min smiled awkwardly. "I want to live a little longer. Besides, the great everlasting heaven won't allow its people to kill themselves." If your everlasting heaven is so useful, why don't you ask it to deal with this old monster? Zhou Zhiruo curled her lips. Zhao Min was at a loss for words. Don't waste your time. If I don't say anything, no one will die. Seeing the two girls arguing, venerated Ming snorted impatiently. Is that so? Zhou Zhiruo's face turned cold. She waved her whip and wrapped it around Zhao Min's neck. With the power of the white python whip technique, Zhao Min's slender neck would be suffocated the moment it was wrapped around. Venerated Ming frowned. The Shenghua insignia quickly flew toward Zhou Zhiruo. Zhou Zhiruo pulled back her whip and lashed it at the Shenghua insignia. However, the Shenghua insignia in the air seemed to have eyes and dodged it in a very strange way. Before Zhou Zhiruo could come to her senses, she felt several major acupoints on her body go numb. It turned out that the other Shenghua insignia had secretly circled around her body and restrained her acupoints. Zhao Min finally came to her senses. She touched her neck in fear and glared at Zhou Zhiruo. Are you really going to kill me? Didn't you ask me to kill you? Zhou Zhiruo said with a matter-of-fact expression. Didn't I ask you to kill me later? Zhao Min was speechless. You won't have a chance later. Zhou Zhiruo let out a faint sigh. Why are you so useless? You're the leader of a sect. How could you be restrained by her in one move? What happened to your awe-inspiring performance at the lion-slaying convention? Seeing that Zhou Zhiruo had been restrained in the blink of an eye, Zhao Min looked as if she had expected better from her. If you're so capable, why don't you go and kill him yourself? Zhou Zhiruo's words silenced Zhao Min. A burst of arrogant laughter resounded across the sky. While approaching the three of them, revered Ming said to Zhou, sect leader Zhou, just now, this stinky brat said that he would stay and die with you. Do you feel touched? You should understand now. It's not that he's great, but that he knows that you can't stop me and he can't leave. That's why he pretended to be generous and stayed behind. Song Qingshu smiled faintly and did not try to defend himself. Instead, it was Zhou Zhiruo who sneered and said, a man with a filthy mind thinks that everyone is a despicable person. Zhao Min tilted her head and smiled sweetly at Zhou Zhiruo. It's rare for us to have the same opinion. Revered Ming's face turned gloomy. He ignored the two girls and looked at Song Qingshu, saying, Song, I can let one of you leave. Who do you think I should let go? You're that kind? Song Qingshu was stunned. He quickly understood the other party's sinister intentions. Then let Zhao Min go. Revered Ming laughed out loud. Miss Zhou, do you see that? Your man would rather save another woman than save his own wife. Are you disappointed? Seeing that Zhou Zhiruo was silent, Revered Ming continued. Previously, I felt that the demoness surnamed Zhao had an affair with him. Now, it seems that it's true. Song Qingshu was not anxious. Instead, he smiled and asked calmly, Oh, there's an affair between me and the princess? I'd like to hear the details. Revered Ming said coldly, There's nothing between you and that demoness. Why would you give up on killing me in order to save her and turn the tables around? If there's nothing between you and her, why would she not bring the experts of the Ryong Mansion and only you? Why would she give up on the chance to escape just now and willingly stay behind to die with you? Now that you mention it, it does seem to be the case. Song Qingshu nodded in agreement. He turned to look at Zhao Min and said with a smile, I didn't expect the princess to be so devoted to me. If you're lucky enough to escape from this calamity, forget about Zhang Wuji and follow me. What do you think? Bah! Zhao Min's face turned red. That old monster is crazy. Are you going to be crazy with him? If it weren't for the fact that you're seriously injured, I'd definitely tear your mouth apart. Zhou Zhiruo frowned when she heard that. She could not help but glare at Zhao Min. Why do you like to fight with me so much? Who's fighting with you? The corner of Zhao Min's mouth curled up into a beautiful smile. I like to snatch other people's things. What's wrong with that? Shameless. Not only did Zhou Zhiruo not get angry, she even laughed. Now that the two of them were on the brink of death, bickering with each other before their deaths was quite interesting. Zhao Min made a face proudly. Then she nudged Song Qingshu. Hey, surnamed Song, why did you choose to let me go? Don't tell me that you're really interested in me? Zhou Zhiruo immediately pricked up her ears. It was obvious that she was very concerned about Song Qingshu's answer. Song Qingshu smiled. If Zhiruo and I die together, we can be a pair of mandarin ducks that share the same fate. We won't be lonely on the road to hell. If I die together with you, won't I be depressed when I see you and Zhang Wuji together on the road to hell? Hearing the words pair of mandarin ducks that share the same fate, Zhou secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She thought to herself, so many things have happened between us. It's not bad for us to die together like this. What Zhao Min cared about was the latter part of the sentence. Listening to Song Qingshu's tone, it seemed that he was a little jealous. For some reason, Zhao Min actually felt inexplicably happy. Looking at the sincere smiles of the two women, revered Ming's heart surged with anger. How can it be so easy to die together? His gaze lingered on the two women. One was bright and charming, while the other was incomparably elegant. A strange light flashed in revered Ming's eyes. He laughed and said, Song Qingshu, don't worry and go to hell. In the history of the Han people, there was a hero with the surname Chao who said, I will take care of your wife, don't worry about her. I will return these words to you. Zhao Min said angrily, no matter what, you are still a grandmaster. The teachings of the Ming dynasty are all about righteousness, punishing evil, and promoting good. How can you be so shameless? Revered Ming laughed without a care in the world. My view of good and evil is not something you mortals can understand. A tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye, this is the greatest kindness in the world. You Mongolian Expeditionary Army burned, killed, looted, and raped women. I will let you have a taste of such humiliation. What wrong is there? What about Zhou Zhiruo? She did not harm your disciples. Zhao Min couldn't help but say, according to the words of the Han people, to be successful, one should not bother about trifles. Furthermore, to be able to serve me is the greatest honor for a woman in the world. Revered Ming said proudly, this shameless demeanor. I am ashamed of my inferiority. Song Qingshu laughed bitterly and shook his head. He secretly gathered his true qi on his fingertips. After this period of recuperation, he reckoned that when the revered Ming got carried away and came over, he would be able to take him down with him by surprise. Just as he was thinking about how to lure revered Ming over without arousing his suspicions, a clear and melodious voice of a woman came from not far away. Tui, 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 you really don't know shame. Chapter 428. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young girl in a light green robe standing not far away. She was glaring at venerated Ming with an indignant look on her face. It was obvious that she was very dissatisfied with what he had just said. Brat, what did you say? With venerated Ming's status, it was natural for him to feel embarrassed after being rebuked by a teenage girl. The girl in the light green robe stretched out her finger and scratched her face. I said, you are really shameless. Are you deaf? Seeing the girl innocently asking venerated Ming if he was deaf, Zhao Min and Zhou could not help but burst out laughing. Although Song Qingshu also found it funny, he still said worriedly, young lady, you should leave this place quickly. It's very dangerous here. The green-robed girl turned around to look at Song Qingshu, her eyes curved like crescent moons. You're quite a good person. You helped me bury Little White, and now you're about to die. You're still concerned about me. Song Qingshu was startled. Who is Little White? The girl in the light green robe's expression darkened. It's that poor white sheep. Well, it's just a piece of cake. Song Qingshu was speechless and didn't know what to say. Yeah, I remember that Big Brother's martial arts are very good. Why do you look like you are half dead now? Did you get beaten up by this shameless person? The girl in the light green robe suddenly pointed at venerated Ming and asked curiously. Song Qingshu suppressed his laughter and nodded. Yes. The girl in the light green robe looked at venerated Ming. It seems that your martial arts are very good. Venerated Ming's face had already turned green. Brat, you will die if you speak nonsense. Song Qingshu echoed in a rare moment. Little girl, you should leave quickly. This old monster is not a kind person. Be careful that he doesn't kill you. Kill me. The girl in the light green robe was stunned. She laughed and said, I am not afraid of him. Revered Ming snorted coldly. He could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. He pointed his finger at the girl, and a sacred flame insignia shot out. However, Ming Zun saw that she was only a delicate and pretty young girl. He could not help but have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Therefore, the Shenghuo Ling was not aimed at her vital point. He only intended to teach her a lesson. Be careful. Before Song Qingshu could finish his words, his mouth was agape. He saw the girl casually grab the sacred flame insignia in her hand. The young girl placed the Shenghuo Ling on her palm and knocked it with the green bamboo she used to drive goats. She heard a crisp bang, bang noise. Ah, she called out in amazement. What is this thing made of? It is pretty hard. Venerated Ming was also extremely shocked. Even though he had only used 30% of his strength, how could an ordinary person withstand the sacred flame medallion? With a flick of his sleeve, the holy flame insignia in the girl's hand flew back into Revered Ming's sleeve as if it had been summoned. Little girl, who exactly are you? Revered Ming looked at her with fear. You're asking for my name? My name is Ah Qing, the young girl answered without any wariness. Ah Qing? Revered Ming pondered for a while, but he could not think of any hermit expert whose daughter was called Ah Qing. On the other side, Song Qingshu's expression was extremely interesting. Ah Qing, the girl who reared goats. Could it be the one in the Yu Maiden sword? In his previous life, there were discussions on the #1 expert in Jin Yang's novels on the internet. Some said it was a sweeping monk, some said it was Dugu Qiubai. Everyone had their reasons, and everyone had their reasons. However, everyone had tacitly excluded one person, because in everyone's opinion, that person's martial arts had far exceeded the level of Jin Yang's novels. It was a complete bug. That person was the Yu Maiden, Ah Qing. She used an ordinary green bamboo stick to defeat the 3,000 armored soldiers of the Yu Kingdom, who had once dominated the spring and autumn period. The whole process was effortless, and she created a legend of one person taking on an entire army. As strong as Xiao Feng was, he was able to subdue the leader of the Liao rebel army, Yalu Chongyuan, because he had taken advantage of the enemy's carelessness. Even so, he still risked his life. If he were to do it again, it would be impossible for him to succeed. The 5 masters of the sword meat of Mount Hua were so powerful that even the world's #1, Wang Chongyang, was helpless against the Jin army. In a later stage of the Condor War, Zhou Badong, Reverend Yidong, Huang Yaoshi, and the other top experts of the 5 masters led Huang Rong and Cheng Ying, but they were almost annihilated by hundreds of Mongolian soldiers. From this, it could be seen how heaven-defying Ah Qing's 1v3000 battle record was. Why do you have such a strange expression? Zhao Min, who had been paying attention to Song Qingshu from time to time, could not help but ask when she saw the faint smile on his face. Song Qingshu took a deep breath and said, I want to say, maybe we don't have to die together tonight. Bah, who wants to die together with you? Zhao Min blushed and could not help but spit. Zhou Zhuo was more concerned about the girl's kung fu because she had fought with Venerated Ming. She knew that although Venerated Ming was careless just now, she would not have been able to withstand Venerated Ming's holy flame medallion so easily. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Zhou Zhuo could not help but interrupt and ask, Do you know that Ah Qing? I know her more than that. Her name is like thunder in my ears. Song Qingshu sighed. Zhou Zhuo was stunned and asked, Is she that famous? I don't think I've heard of her in Jianghu. Zhao Min nodded in agreement. Even the Riyang Mansion's intelligence network had not heard of this girl, so she naturally did not understand why Song Qingshu was so confident. Keep watching and you'll know. Song Qingshu smiled mysteriously. Although Venerated Ming was a little afraid of the girl's identity, he could not let her leave alive so that the secret of his possession would not be leaked. As a great master of kung fu, Venerated Ming did not take the girl seriously even though she behaved a little strangely. Little girl, let's see if you can withstand my holy flame medallion this time. Venerated Ming snorted and waved his hand. The holy flame medallion shot toward Ah Qing at a speed several times faster than before. This time, Venerated Ming did not hold back. Not only did the Holy Flame Medallion have a terrifying aura of destruction attached to it, but was also aimed at Ah Qing's vital acupoints. Ah Qing's expression tightened. She was obviously not as relaxed as before. She stared at the trajectory of the Holy Flame Medallion and stretched out her soft and fair hand again. Just when her hand was about to grab the Holy Flame Medallion, the Holy Flame Medallion let out a dragon's roar and suddenly split into 6 pieces, spinning and hitting the vital acupoints on Ah Qing's side and back. Venerated Ming is really shameless. He actually combined 6 Holy Flame Medallions and pretended to shoot only one. Song Qingshu could not help but curse. According to his speculation, Venerated Ming did not know Ah Qing. With Venerated Ming's identity, there was no need for him to use his full strength to deal with a young girl. Ouch! Ah Qing exclaimed. She bent her body and jumped out of the attack range of the Holy Flame Medallion. However, the Holy Flame Medallion seemed to be controlled and followed Ah Qing like maggots on a bone. You're so annoying. Ah Qing pouted. She picked up the green bamboo stick and pointed it at the spinning Holy Flame Medallion. With 2 crisp clangs, 2 Holy Flame Medallions were hit by her in the blink of an eye. As the 2 Holy Flame Medallions fell to the ground, Venerated Ming's face became abnormally red. It was obvious that he had suffered a serious internal injury. He could not help but look at the young girl, who was not far away, with shock and anger. When another Holy Flame Medallion was hit by Ah Qing, Venerated Ming could no longer sit still. He roared and rushed toward Ah Qing, who was dodging the attacks of the Holy Flame Medallions like a cannonball. Be careful! Although he was very confident in Ah Qing, Venerated Ming was also an old demon. Song Qingshu was afraid that something might happen to her, so he used the remaining genuine qi to shoot the wooden sword at Venerated Ming, hoping that it could temporarily stop him. As soon as the wooden sword was shot, Song Qingshu could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. It was obvious that using his genuine qi had affected the internal injuries in his body. Hearing the sound of the wooden sword piercing through the air, Venerated Ming snorted coldly. He flicked his sleeve, and the wooden sword was thrown to the side. Although he was a little surprised that he could not break a wooden sword with his full strength, Venerated Ming's attention was on Ah Qing. He quickly came back to his senses and pressed his palm on Ah Qing's delicate body. You are not a good person, Ah Qing rebuked. She was a little embarrassed because of the Holy Flame Medallion that had suddenly split into 6. Now that she saw Venerated Ming sneak attacking her, she could not help but feel a little angry. She waved her green bamboo stick to meet the attack. A green sword qi quickly bloomed with Ah Qing as the center. The Holy Flame Medallions that were flying all over the sky came into contact with the green sword qi. They seemed to let out a painful cry and fell to the side. Venerated Ming's pupils shrank. He hurriedly used the Heaven and Earth Great Shift. Before the green sword qi could reach him, a mass of black qi appeared in front of Venerated Ming. As soon as the black qi came into contact with the green sword qi, it melted like snow in the spring meeting the blazing sun. Venerated Ming let out a strange cry. He waved his sleeves and collected the Holy Flame Medallions that were scattered on the ground. Then, he fled into the distance like a wisp of black smoke. Running away when you can't beat him? So boring. Ah Qing had just taken a step forward when she seemed to have thought of something. She gave up on chasing after him. Venerated Ming was defeated just like that. Zhao Min was in a daze for a moment. She mumbled to herself. Although Zhou Zhuo did not say anything, she looked at the young girl, Ah Qing, with reverence. Big brother, thank you for helping me just now. Ah Qing casually hung the green bamboo stick on her waist and skipped to Song Qingshu's side. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and said, even without my help, he wouldn't have been able to hurt you. Ah Qing shook her head and said, that's not necessarily true. This person's martial arts are very high. I don't know what martial art he used just now, but he was actually able to dissolve 70% of my sword qi. The young girl fell in a deep thought. However, she quickly raised her head and said with a smile, let's not think about it. Anyway, 30% of my sword chi invaded his body. It's enough for him to suffer. That should be the Ming Dynasty's heaven and earth great shift. Song Qing-shu analyzed as he recalled the scene just now. Song Qing-shu was not surprised that Qing could materialize the sword chi. Instead, he was shocked that venerated Ming could materialize the heaven and earth great shift. Only 30% of the sword chi invaded the old monster's body? Zhao Min could not help but show a hint of regret. Chapter 429. Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "You don't know what Qing's 30% sword chi means. If I'm not wrong, venerated Ming's cultivation has been reduced by half because of this sword chi. When Dongfang Muxue was injured by Feng Qingyang's sword chi, she couldn't recover to her peak state for several years, let alone Qing's innate sword chi." I see. A hint of joy appeared in Zhao Min's eyes. With venerated Ming's cultivation reduced by half, it would be much easier to deal with him. You guys keep calling him an old monster, but I don't think that person is old at all. Qing tilted her head and asked in confusion. It's a long story. Why are you here? Song Qing-shu struggled to stand up. Zhou Zhuo, who was at the side, saw him swaying and quickly went to help him up. Song Qing-shu smiled at her gratefully. Isn't it because of the fight here? It's so noisy that my sheep can't sleep, so I came over to take a look. I have to go back and take care of my sheep in case it gets stolen by the wolves in the mountains. As she spoke, Qing patted her head and turned to leave. Just as she took a step forward, she seemed to have thought of something. She turned around and looked at Song Qing-shu. Big brother, you seem to be badly injured. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly and shook his head. Don't worry, I won't die. Qing's worry turned into joy and she smiled. Then I can leave without worry. After that, she skipped and disappeared into the distance. Looking at her leaving back, Zhao Min gloated and said, "Didn't you say that you were very close to her? I feel that you are not as important as her sheep in her heart." Song Qing-shu touched his nose and smiled nonchalantly. What's so strange about not being as important as her sheep? Let me give you a piece of advice. You can offend her in the future, but don't offend her sheep. You are injured now, so don't talk too much, Zhou Zhuo said with some blame. When Song Qing-shu unsealed her acupoints, he used his true qi to aggravate her injuries. It's just some blood. I'll get used to it. Song Qing-shu wiped the corner of his mouth and said while looking at the blood on his fingers, "The Golden Snake Conference is around the corner. I don't know how you can smile when you look like you are half dead." Obviously, Zhao Min was not as optimistic as him. "As long as you support me according to the agreement, I will take care of the rest. Princess, you don't need to worry about it." Zhao Min rolled her eyes and said, "It seems that you have a secret method to treat internal injuries." "That's right. You can still be as lively as a dragon and a tiger, even if your meridians are all broken. So this kind of injury is really nothing. To think that I was worried for you." Zhou Zhuo couldn't help but cough. "If you want to seduce him, at least find a time when I'm not around." Zhao Min's face turned red, but she quickly concealed it. She did not have the shyness of a typical Han girl at all. She said in a natural and unrestrained manner, "Then you have to hold on to him tightly. Don't let me snatch him away again." With that, she turned around and left, leaving behind a string of bell-like laughter in the forest. I think I saw her crying when she turned around. After a moment of silence, Zhou Zhuo suddenly said with uncertainty, "Tonight, she found out that the real Zhang Wuji was dead. How could she not be sad? But I don't want to show my weak side in front of my former love rival." Song Qing-shu sighed. "I'm afraid he doesn't want to show anything in front of you," Zhou Zhuo said with jealousy. From the conversation between Zhao Min and him, anyone with a normal IQ could tell that something had happened between the two. "Oh, I'm a little dizzy now, dizzy. Song Qing-shu suddenly let out a loud cry. It was as if his legs had lost all strength. His whole body went limp, and he leaned against Zhou Zhuo. "What's wrong with you?" Zhou Zhuo was shocked and quickly reached out to hold him. Seeing Song Qing-shu's pale face and pale lips, Zhou Zhuo suddenly panicked. She quickly helped him to sit down and started to help him heal. One after another, genuine qi was injected into Song Qingshu's body, but it was like a trickle flowing into the ocean without any ripples. After the time it took for 3 incense sticks to burn, Zhou Zhirua finally gave up dejectedly. Seeing that Song Qingshu was still unconscious, she couldn't help but hug him and cry. Song Qingshu opened his eyes a little and secretly glanced at Zhou Zhirua. He was very proud. It seems that pretending to be dead at the right time is really a good idea. When he was about to pretend to wake up, he suddenly heard 2 female voices not far away. Brother Song, Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu heard it clearly and knew that it was Zhu Yaoyao and Xia Qingqing's voices. His hair immediately stood on end. Who knew what would happen when the 3 women met? Song Qingshu immediately closed his eyes. At this time, he could not wake up even if he was beaten to death. Apparently, Zhou Zhirua was also awakened by the sound. She subconsciously grasped the long whip beside her and looked in that direction vigilantly. Zhu Yaoyao was the first to fly over. Seeing that Song Qingshu was lying in the arms of a woman, she subconsciously thought that Song Qingshu had been killed by Zhou Zhirua. After all, she was very clear about Song Qingshu's cultivation, and she really couldn't think of anyone in the world who could hurt him. But it was understandable if he was hurt by a woman. "Let him go," Zhu Yaoyao shouted, and waved her sword to attack Zhou Zhirua. Zhou Zhirua frowned. She shook the long whip and made a beautiful whip flower toward Zhu Yaoyao in the air. After being defeated by Song Qingshu many times, Zhou Zhirua had been practicing the 9 manual in seclusion this time, and could be considered as a top martial artist in the world. She was easily defeated by revered Ming just now. First, revered Ming's fighting experience was far greater than hers. Second, the sacred flame insignia was too strange. Zhu Yaoyao had learned all the skills of the Iron Sword School. Not only did she have many adventures, but she also obtained half of Song Qingshu's power in Shengjing. Her martial arts had long surpassed most of the female heroes in Jianghu. However, Zhou Zhirua, as the head of the Amei school, possessed the martial scripture of Amei and practiced the 9 manual, was not inferior to Zhu Yaoyao. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged more than 10 moves. Zhu Yaoyao couldn't get close to Zhou Zhirua, and neither could Zhou Zhirua. Soon, the 2 women fell into a stalemate. Xia Qingqing finally rushed over. Seeing the 2 women fighting, she was angry and amused, so she hurriedly shouted, "Stop fighting, stop fighting. We're all on the same side." Zhou Zhua had met Xia Qingqing in the Forbidden City, so she naturally recognized her. Just now, she heard how they called Song Qingshu, so she also knew that Zhu Yaoyao might be Song Qingshu's mistress. She was already angry, and Zhu Yaoyao started fighting as soon as they met, so she naturally didn't need to be polite. However, since Xia Qingqing had spoken, she couldn't pretend that she didn't know and continue fighting. With a cold snort, she withdrew the long whip. On the same side, Zhu Yaoyao took the opportunity to leave the fighting circle and looked at Xia Qingqing with a puzzled face. Xia Qingqing also looked a little strange. She hurriedly explained, "This is the head of the Amei school, Zhou." Zhu Yaoyao looked embarrassed. After all, Zhou Zhirua was Song Qingshu's legal wife. Zhu Yaoyao didn't have a legal title, but she actually fought with her the first time they met. "I'm sorry, I thought you." Zhu Yaoyao blushed and stood there at a loss. "Who are you?" Zhou Zhirua's voice was cold, and she looked at her quietly. I. Zhu Yaoyao didn't know how to explain for a moment. She and Song Qingshu just promised to marry each other privately, and there was no legal title. She couldn't introduce herself as the former princess of the Ming dynasty, which would give the other a feeling of oppression. Fortunately, Xia Qingqing helped her out. "Miss Zhou, her name is Zhu Yaoyao. You can also call her Jiao in the future." Zhu Yaoyao. A trace of surprise flashed in Zhou Zhirua's eyes. "You are the new saintess that Ming Zhang Wuji found, the former 9th princess of the Ming dynasty?" Zhou Zhirua had a deep relationship with the Ming dynasty. Of course, she knew about the new saintess, but she had never met her. "Yes, Sister Zhou." Zhu Yaoyao couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief when she called her sister. Although she was born in the royal family, she subconsciously cared about the status of women. But thinking of Song Qingshu's promise, it was not a big deal to call her sister. Hearing Zhu Yaoyao take the initiative to call her sister, Zhou Zhuo was stunned subconsciously. Of course, she knew Zhu Yaoyao's noble identity. She was so humble and took the initiative to show goodwill, so it was not good for her to keep a straight face. She couldn't help but curse Song Qingshu in her heart. She couldn't understand why Song Qingshu was so charming. Even with Zhu Yaoyao's bloodline identity, her heart was captured by him. "Hello, Jiao." Zhou Zhuo forced a smile and nodded to Zhu Yaoyao. Xia Qingqing was the most open person in the scene. She and Zhu Yaoyao were old friends, and she had met Zhou Zhuo in the Forbidden City. Xia Qingqing was angry and amused at the same time when she saw the two girls playing a show of sisterly affection at this time. She was too lazy to care about them. She quickly ran to Song Qingshu's side and checked his pulse. She couldn't help but turn pale. "Brother Song, what's wrong?" Sure enough, Yu loves me the most. Being held in Xia Qingqing's arms and feeling the softness of her chest on his face, Song Qingshu tried hard to restrain the expression of enjoyment on his face. It turned out that the two girls saw that Song Qingshu had been going back. Thinking that the heroes of the Golden Snake Camp had gathered, they were worried that he would be in danger, so they came out together to look for him. Just now, the battle between Song Qingshu and Revered Ming was too loud, so the two girls followed the sound and rushed over. That was why the previous scene happened. "He is seriously injured." Zhou Zhuo finally came back to her senses and answered. "Who hurt him?" Zhu Yaoyao also came over and checked Song Qingshu's pulse. Her face also changed. "An old monster." Zhou Zhuo gnashed her teeth and said. Suddenly, her ears twitched. Just now there was too much noise, and now many masters are rushing over here. This is not a good place to talk. "Let's go back to our camp first," Zhu Yaoyao said. Zhou Zhuo hesitated and said, "He is seriously injured and on the verge of death. I plan to send him to Miracle Dr. Shui in Songzhou. Will it be a waste of time to go back to your camp?" "But he still needs to participate in the Golden Snake King election," Xia Qingqing said anxiously. Zhou Zhuo was slightly angry. "He is already like this. How can he participate in the election?" Zhu Yaoyao's expression changed several times, and she suddenly said bashfully, "If Brother Song is injured internally, we can actually save him without looking for Miracle Dr. Shui." Chapter 430. Do you have a way? Zhou Zhuo looked at her in surprise. Zhu Xiaoyi blushed and suddenly became bashful. "I do have a way." "What way? Why are you still keeping us in suspense?" "Jiao, tell us quickly," Xia Qingqing asked anxiously. Zhu Xiaoyi also looked depressed. She didn't know how to say this kind of thing in front of them. However, seeing that Song Qingshu was really weak, she knew that if she didn't say it clearly, Zhou Zhuo would probably take him away. "Last time in Shengjing City, I was also seriously injured." Zhu Xiaoyi blushed and stammered about her treatment last time. After hearing her words, Zhou Zhuo and Xia Qingqing looked at each other. Zhou Zhuo couldn't help but curse angrily. "This bastard, I don't know where he learned such a dirty, heretical martial art." Zhu Xiaoyi subconsciously defended him. According to Song, Brother Song, this is a proper martial art of the Tantric sect. She subconsciously wanted to call him Song Lang, but now that there was not only his legal wife here, but also another confidant, calling him Song Lang would be too harsh. As soon as the words came out of her mouth, she quickly imitated Xia Qingqing and called him Brother Song. Thinking of this, Zhu Xiaoyi was a little envious of Xia Qingqing. She had the title of Yuan, Chengji's widow. Although it would affect her relationship with Song Qingshu, in front of other people, she could be aloof. Thinking of Song Qingshu's slightly shameless face sometimes, Zhou Zhuo snorted coldly. "Do you really believe his nonsense?" Xia Qingqing obviously had the same idea. She smiled and pinched Zhu Xiaoyi. "Jiao, I didn't expect you to be so gullible." Song Qingshu, who was pretending to be unconscious, broke out in a cold sweat when he heard this. He didn't dare to wake up in this situation. Sensing that someone was approaching, Zhou said, "We can't stay here for long. Let's leave first." Finished speaking, Xia Qingqing led the way, while Zhou and Zhu Saiqiang each supported one of Song Qingshu's arms, and using Qinggong, they hurried toward Wang Wupai's camp. Looking at the two women supporting Song Qingshu, Xia Qingqing could not help but feel remorseful for her special identity. After all, she was going to meet the people of Wang Wu faction later, and she was also the nominal mistress of Golden Snake Camp. If she were to support another man so intimately, it would not be long before rumors spread throughout Golden Snake Camp. Ninth Princess, what happened to Prince Song? Hearing the news, Situ Boulay came out to greet them. When he saw Song Qingshu's situation, he could not help but jump in fright. Zhu Saiqiang shook her head slightly. "There's no time to explain it this time. I'll take him back to my room. General, send someone to guard outside, and don't let anyone disturb us." Hearing that Zhu Saiqiang wanted to take a man back to her boudoir, Situ Boulay looked hesitant. But on second thought, the two of them were lovers, and there was no need for royal etiquette in this chaotic world. He immediately nodded and sent them to Zhu Saiqiang's courtyard. After that, he quickly arranged some capable subordinates to guard outside. Zheng Ro got the news late. When she hurried over, Song Qingshu was nowhere to be seen. She asked anxiously, "Master, I heard that Brother Song is seriously injured?" Situ Boulay nodded. "Ro, you don't have to worry too much. The ninth princess has had many adventures in Jianghu over the years, and her martial arts are excellent. She must have a way to save Prince Song. I'm going to see Brother Song." Zheng Ro rushed to Zhu Saiqiang's courtyard. She had just been betrothed to Song Qingshu a few hours ago, so they shouldn't see each other before the wedding. But now that Song Qingshu's life was in danger, Zheng Ro didn't have the time to care about this. "Hey, Ro, Situ Boulay pulled her back. "The ninth princess has issued a decree that no one is allowed to disturb them. Even me." Zheng Ro looked surprised. Situ Boulay said seriously, "She is a princess after all. Although the great Ming dynasty has fallen, as her subjects, we still have to abide by the etiquette of a ruler and a subject." "Oh." Zheng Ro looked disappointed and stared blankly in the direction of Zhu Saiqiang's courtyard. In the courtyard, after the three women laid Song Qingshu on the bed, Zhou and Xia Qingqing looked at Zhu Saiqiang at the same time and asked, "What should we do now?" Zhu Saiqiang's snow-white face was now red. She lowered her head and murmured, "I can only remember the route of his energy circulation. Can you wait for me outside?" Zhou did not feel good knowing her method of saving people. Xia Qingqing, on the other hand, had more contact with Song Qingshu, so she was more open to it. She asked directly, "But in his current state, can he really do it?" As soon as she said this, the three women's hearts trembled. They were no longer inexperienced girls, so they naturally understood what she meant. Zhu Saiqiang's eyes flickered, and her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. I will try my best." "Then, thank you for your hard work," Zhou said to Zhu Saiqiang before she left after taking a deep look at Song Qingshu. "Not at all, not at all." Zhu Saiqiang hurriedly waved her hand. After the conversation, the two women felt extremely awkward. Xia Qingqing held back her laughter and pulled Zhou out. "Zhou, we will wait next door. If anything happens, call us, and we will come to help." "Help." When Song Qingshu, who was pretending to be asleep, heard these two words, his ears immediately perked up. A fascinating scene appeared in his mind, and he couldn't help but think, this is a rare opportunity. Why don't I? Watching Zhou and Xia Qingqing close the door, leaving only Zhu Saiqiang and Song Qingshu in the room, Zhu Saiqiang relaxed. After all, in her mind, Song Qingshu was still unconscious. Song Qingshu, that night in Shengjing Jiu is unforgettable, but at that time I really didn't pay much attention to the route, so you have to wake up quickly. Zhu Saiqiang murmured to herself as her fingertips gently stroked Song Qingshu's face. Song Qingshu was moved. He was worried that night would become a Jiu's nightmare. But now he finally heard her words. That night was so wonderful in her heart. He heard the rustling sound of clothes being taken off, and soon a delicate body as warm as jade pressed against him. Song Qingshu's body tensed subconsciously. Isn't it too shameless for me to do this? Song Qingshu was in a trance. With Zhu Caiqiang's identity, she had been served by others since she was a child. When had she ever served others? Now, in order to save him, she actually put down her modesty and took the initiative to tease him. On one side was moral shame, and on the other side was temptation. While Song Qingshu was in a dilemma, his body suddenly trembled, and a certain part of his body had been sucked by gentle and moist lips. Previously, when Song Qingshu and Zhu Caiqiang were intimate, he had tried several times to make Zhu Caiqiang do this, but every time, she would blush and shake her head. Obviously, as a member of the royal family, she couldn't put down her pride to do this kind of thing. He didn't expect that she would take the initiative to do this time. Feeling the drastic change in the thing in her mouth, Zhu Caiqiang said happily, "Song Qingshu, you're awake." But because her tongue was blocked by something, it turned into a series of unclear whimpers. Song Qingshu didn't have a nerve to wake up at this time and put Zhu Caiqiang in an embarrassing situation, so he could only enjoy Zhu Caiqiang's thin and soft lips while bearing the moral condemnation. "Song Qingshu, why are you still not awake?" Zhu Xiaoyi rubbed her slightly numb mouth and looked at Song Qingshu, who was still motionless, with some hidden bitterness. Song Qingshu couldn't bear it anymore. He hugged Zhu Caiqiang's delicate body and turned her over. "Song Qingshu, Zhu Caiqiang's face was full of surprise, but before she could finish her sentence, she felt that Song Qingshu had broken through the topic, and the rest of the sentence turned into a sweet moan. Song Qingshu also knew that his injury couldn't be delayed, so after being intimate with Ajiao for a while, he began to use Ajiao's purine qi to help him repair his injured meridians. After a cycle of true qi circulation, Song Qingshu's face suddenly changed. Zhu Caiqiang sensed the change and asked with concern, "What's wrong?" Song Qingshu said with a bitter smile, "The main purpose of the blissful Zen is to refine yin and yang qi. Generally speaking, the body of a girl has the purest yin qi." Ajiao, you are talented, so even after losing your virginity, your body is still full of pure yin qi, but what? At this time, the two of them were very intimate. Zhu Caiqiang seemed to have entered a wonderful state. She seemed to be able to feel the situation in Song Qingshu's body. His true qi had obviously been circulating for a cycle, but there was no obvious sign of his internal injury getting better. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. This can be considered as a self-inflicted evil. Did you forget that we were intimate a few hours ago? The pure yin qi in your body has not recovered. Ah, Zhu Caiqiang was stunned. Then what should we do? Before Song Qingshu could answer, Zhu Caiqiang's face turned red. I have an idea. What idea? Song Qingshu was stunned. There are two more next door. Zhu Caiqiang smiled meaningfully and suddenly shouted, Sister Zhou, Qingqing, come and help me. I'm dizzy. Song Qingshu really didn't know how to face three women at the same time, so he hurriedly took out a piece of silk and pretended to faint. Zhu Caiqiang was stunned, but at this time, Zhou Zhuo and Xia Qingqing had heard the news and rushed over, so she had no time to think about it. She quickly pulled a piece of silk from the bedside and wrapped it around her body. Zhou Zhuo rushed in anxiously, but when she saw Song Qingshu's naked appearance, she was so shy that she hurriedly turned around. Xia Qingqing couldn't figure out the emotional entanglement between the two of them. She looked at Zhou Zhuo strangely, but there was no time to think about it. She quickly looked at Zhu Caiqiang and asked, Ajiao, what happened? Zhu Caiqiang's face became even redder. The principle of the happy Zen was easy to explain, but the two of them had been intimate a few hours ago, so now the pure yin qi in her body was not enough, so she was too embarrassed to say it. However, now that her life was at stake, Zhu Caiqiang explained the general situation intermittently. Of course, the sensitive parts were all covered in one sentence. Understanding the situation in front of them, Zhou Jiruo and Xia Qingqing were dumbfounded. In fact, if the two women were alone with Song Qingshu, they would not hesitate to sacrifice themselves to save him. But in front of the other women, they were too embarrassed to do so. Zhu Saiqiang glared bitterly at Song Qingshu, who was lying on the bed, and gritted her teeth. Her heart was full of hatred. No wonder he pretended to be asleep. If he was awake, how could we put our faces down? Thinking of this, Zhu Saiqiang had to suppress the idea of exposing him. She wrapped the silk and stood up. I'll leave the rest to you. Then she ran out without looking back. Chapter 431. Hey, Ajio, what should we do if you leave? Xia Qingqing reacted quickly and grabbed Zhu Yui, who was running out. Among the three women, only Ajio had seen the method of dual cultivation. If only she and Zhou Zhuo were left, they could only stare at each other. Being pulled back by Xia Qingqing, Zhu Yui's face turned red and she murmured, "Just do what you usually do with him. The true qi in his body will automatically operate." At this time, Zhu Yui cursed Song Qingshu to death in her heart. She thought, "It's better if you pretend to faint and leave me here to lose face." She wanted to reveal the truth, but she was worried that the other two women would get angry and leave. She could not save Song Qingshu herself. I see. Xia Qingqing was also a little embarrassed. Ajio, you should stay here. If anything happens, you will be safer. On the other side, Zhou Zhuo's face turned red and white. The relationship between her and Song Qingshu was not to be known to others. Previously, she had been intimate with Song Qingshu several times by chance and had no choice. Now that she was asked to sleep with him, how could she put down her pride? Sect leader Zhou, you do it. Xia Qingqing's tone was a little shy. After all, she was Mrs. Yuan in name. With two real women, Song Qingshu and Zhou Zhuo, she was too embarrassed to intervene. Zhou Zhuo awkwardly stared blankly and quickly said, "You do it. I'll protect you." Xia Qingqing was speechless. She did not need protection for this kind of thing. Sister Zhou, you're Brother Song's wife after all. Seeing that Xia Qingqing was in a dilemma, Zhu Yui could not help but help her out. Seeing the two women looking at her eagerly, Zhou Zhuo wanted to cry, but had no tears. But she was too embarrassed to say that she and Song Qingshu were actually husband and wife in name. How could Zhou Zhuo make up her mind when she thought about how she had to offer herself in front of other women? She wanted to leave, but when she saw Song Qingshu lying on the bed with a deathly pale complexion, she couldn't bring herself to do it. Zhou Zhuo sighed faintly and said, "Let's not decline each other. His injuries are too severe, and it's beyond my power to heal him alone. Let's help him heal together." Zhou Zhuo thought it through clearly. Rather than doing the deed of husband and wife with Song Qingshu in front of the two women, it would be better for everyone to do it together. This way, it will be fair for everyone. If everyone was embarrassed, then there would be no one who was more embarrassed. Hearing Zhou Zhuo's suggestion, Zhu Yanai and Xia Qingqing could not help but look at each other. Song Qingshu, who was pretending to be unconscious, was even more shocked. "You can save him. I am Mrs. Yuan after all." Although Xia Qingqing was bold, this kind of scene was too shocking. Subconsciously, she stepped back. "Qingqing, don't pretend. Song Qinglang has told me about what happened between you and him." Thinking that if Xia Qingqing left, she would be the only one left to face the cold Zhou Zhuo, Zhu Yanai shuddered. She couldn't care about anything else. She had to drag Xia Qingqing down with her. She had a deep relationship with Xia Qingqing. In her mind, Xia Qingqing was on the same side as her. With Xia Qingqing's help, she would have the confidence to face Zhou Zhuo. As soon as she said that, Zhou Zhuo let go of her. Seeing the two women's bashful look, she subconsciously showed the demeanor of a big wife and began to assign tasks. Ninth Princess, help Song Qingshu get up and transfer your true qi through his Dazui acupoint to help us heal him. Qingqing, you are responsible for making that dirty thing energetic. He is unconscious. What should we do? Xia Qingqing was dumbfounded. Zhu Yanai bit her lip and quietly whispered something in her ear. Xia Qingqing's face suddenly turned red. Jill, you have learned bad things from him. Although she complained, after hesitating for a moment, she still knelt on the bed and put her head between Song Qingshu's legs. Zhou Zhiruo glanced at it and was too embarrassed to look again. She thought to herself, how can they be so bold? It's your turn. While Zhou Zhiruo was still thinking, Xia Qingqing had already raised her head. She pulled Zhou Zhiruo over and pushed her in front of Song Qingshu. She was a little angry at Zhou Zhiruo's arrangement and wanted to take revenge on her. Zhou Zhiruo staggered, and her face directly hit Song Qingshu's lower abdomen. Her fair face felt a faint numbness from being poked by something. A sweet and exotic fragrance wafted into her nose. Looking at the ferocious appearance in front of her, she, who had always loved cleanliness, found that there was actually not a trace of disgust in her heart. Sensing that Xia Qingqing and Zhu Yanai were waiting for her to act with a faint smile, Zhou Zhiruo gritted her teeth. She thought that as Song Qingshu's official wife, there was no reason for her to let other women laugh at her. The exotic fragrance circulating in the room made Zhou Zhiruo even bolder than usual. She elegantly untied the ribbon around her waist, revealing her delicate body that was as translucent as jade. She gently leaned against Song Qingshu's body. The next morning, when Zhou Zhiruo woke up, she found a snow-white and slender thigh across her waist. I don't know if it's Xia Qingqing's or Jiu's. After a moment of absent-mindedness, Zhou Zhiruo finally recalled the embarrassing scene from the previous day. Lightly patting her cheek, Zhou Zhiruo shook her head slightly. She really couldn't understand why she was so bold last night. Speaking of which, it was all that bastard's fault. She turned her head and glared at the culprit, only to find that his eyes were already open, and he was looking at her with a smile. For a moment, Zhou didn't know how to face this man, and subconsciously turned her head to the other side. A faint smile hung on Song Qingshu's face, and he reached out to gently stroke her smooth, jade-like chin. Zhiruo, last night was the first time you took the initiative to give yourself to me. I was just trying to save someone, Zhiruo said stubbornly. Oh, I didn't know that my Zhiruo was such a kind little white flower. In order to save someone, you're actually willing to give your body. Song Qingshu teased. Who's yours? Even if it's another man, as long as I'm willing, I'll also do the same. Zhou Zhiruo snorted. Your tsundere look is quite cute. Song Qingshu's lips moved closer to her ear, and he whispered while exhaling hot air. However, you actually have the idea of giving to another man. This is absolutely intolerable. Every inch of your body belongs to me alone. How can you be like this? Zhou Zhiruo was annoyed, but for some reason, she didn't feel any disgust when he declared his sovereignty. I'm like this. As soon as Song Qingshu's voice fell, his whole body sat on Zhou Zhiruo's body again. Feeling the change in Song Qingshu's body, Zhou Zhiruo immediately knew what he was going to do, and she quickly waved her hand. Don't worry, I've hit their sleeping acupuncture point. They won't be able to hear. Song Qingshu smiled wickedly, a pair of big hands rubbing on Zhou Zhiruo's round thighs. You're such a bastard. Zhou Zhiruo's beautiful eyes were dripping with water, and she couldn't help but curse softly, but she still subconsciously opened her legs to welcome Song Qingshu's entry. Oh, feeling his body being wrapped by a warm and tight body, Song Qingshu subconsciously let out a satisfied humph. Do you still want to kill me? Zhou Zhiruo endured the impact of his body, and she couldn't help but reveal a happy and sweet expression. A pair of pink arms gently wrapped around Song Qingshu's waist and softly humphed. If you can make me this happy every time, I can consider not killing you. I can also make you happier. Song Qingshu chuckled, and then he activated the joyful true qi, and the familiar sweet fragrance gradually spread. Zhou Zhiruo sniffed, and soon felt that her body was more than 10 times more sensitive than usual. Her body trembled violently, and she said in a sobbing tone, "What is this fragrance coming from your body?" Song Qingshu said proudly, something that can make a woman's legs go weak. He couldn't help but curse in his heart, The tantric master who created the joyful Zen was definitely a pervert. Does it work on any woman? A trace of intoxication flashed in Zhou Zhiruo's eyes. Song Qingshu nodded proudly. Even an iceberg will melt into boiling water after smelling this fragrance. Why didn't you use it on me before? Zhou Zhiruo's expression was complicated, and she understood that if Song Qingshu had used this method from the beginning, even if she hated him to the core, she wouldn't be able to bear to leave him physically. This effect is too domineering. If I use it on every woman I see, it'll be too boring. Song Qingshu grabbed Zhou Zhiruo's shoulder and turned her over. Feeling that Song Qingshu had left her body, Zhou Zhiruo couldn't help but feel a sense of loss and emptiness. When she was about to say something, her waist sank, and Song Qingshu squeezed in from behind again. The familiar sense of fullness made her waist numb, and her body trembled violently. Only women who are willing to be intimate with me. I will use this fragrance to add a little joy in the boudoir. Song Qingshu gently stroked Zhou Zhiruo's delicate back muscles and sighed softly. Zhiruo, your body is so beautiful. Hearing her lover's praise, Zhou Zhiruo felt a surge of sweetness in her heart and subconsciously lowered her waist, half kneeling on the bed, so that Song Qingshu could enter more easily. Perceiving Zhou Zhiruo's subtle movements, Song Qingshu felt even more pity in his heart, and his movements became even more gentle. Don't use this ability to casually harm women. Zhou Zhiruo's hands tightly grasped the silk quilt under her, and when she had just gotten a chance to breathe, she said in a sweet voice, "Of course." Song Qingshu smiled slightly. "No, that's not right. I allow you to use this ability to deal with someone." Zhou Zhiruo seemed to have thought of something and suddenly shouted, "Deal with who?" Song Qingshu was stunned. Zhao Min, Zhou Zhiruo's red lips opened slightly, and she said in a sweet voice, "You two really are a pair of natural enemies." Song Qingshu suddenly laughed involuntarily. "Do you think it's worth it to sacrifice me for the sake of past grievances?" Although Zhao Min, that little temptress, has a belly full of evil tricks, she's really beautiful. "Don't tell me that you've never been moved," Zhou Zhiruo snorted, and saw through Song Qingshu's insincerity at a glance. "But you can play with her body. It's best if she becomes your concubine. Then I can let her serve me tea every day." Thinking of this, Zhou Zhiruo couldn't help but giggle. Happy Dragon Boat Festival, everyone. Chapter 432. Pink hair is indeed black when it's cut open. Song Qingshu secretly clicked his tongue. "What do you mean?" Zhou Zhiruo was stunned. She could understand every single word that he said, but she couldn't understand what he meant when he put them together. "This is a saying from my hometown." Song Qingshu lovingly caressed Zhou Zhiruo's willowy waist and explained, "The general idea is that some women, on the surface, are innocent and flawless, but in fact, they are full of evil tricks." "You're making fun of me." Zhou Zhiruo finally understood, but the meaning of it made her a little embarrassed. She couldn't help but twist her body. "Don't move." Song Qingshu took a deep breath. Zhou Zhiruo twisted her waist like a water snake, and he almost couldn't control himself. Are you not done yet?" Zhou Zhiruo half knelt on the bed, withstanding Song Qingshu's impact again and again. Her elbows and knees touched the bedsheet, and it was slightly painful. "Almost done." Looking at Zhou Zhiruo's obedient appearance, Song Qingshu's body tensed up, and he quickly got the feeling. Don't put it inside. I don't want to have a child for the time being." Feeling the change in Song Qingshu's body, Zhou Zhiruo hurriedly said. Hearing Zhou Zhiruo's words, Song Qingshu hurriedly withdrew from her body and suddenly had a drooping face. "This is so uncomfortable." Zhou Zhiruo slightly pursed her lips, tucked the messy hair behind her ear, and said in a sweet voice, "I'm really not ready yet." Looking at Zhou Zhiruo's charming appearance, Song Qingshu snorted, "I can't take it anymore." Looking at the big sticky patch on her lower abdomen, Zhou Zhiruo lamented, "How am I going to meet people later?" "You don't have to see people. Just stay in bed." Song Qingshu smiled proudly. In your dreams. Zhou Zhuo rolled her eyes at him and began to pack up in a flurry. Seeing that she was almost done, Song Qingshu flicked his finger on Zhu Yanai and Xia Qingqing's bodies and released their sleeping acupoints. Seeing that Song Qingshu and Zhou Zhuo were the first to wake up, the two girls did not suspect anything. They just thought that they had slept too deeply. Recalling the absurdity of last night, Xia Qingqing and Zhu Chong looked at each other, grabbed a thin blanket, and covered their chests with it, lowering their heads like quails. Song Qingshu laughed and said, "Thank you for risking your lives to save me last night. From now on, all of you are a family." His words did not resolve the awkwardness of the three girls. Xia Qingqing suddenly stood up and said with a red face, "Now that the Golden Snake King selection is around the corner, all kinds of people are mixed in. I haven't returned for a whole night, so my subordinates must be anxious. I'll go back to the camp to deal with things." After saying this, she left as if she was escaping. Old hero Situ and the others are still waiting for news. I'll go inform them. Zhu Chong seemed to have been inspired. She hurriedly said, "Huh," and quickly disappeared out the door. Song Qingshu's eyes widened. He turned to look at Zhou Zhuo. "You're not leaving too, are you?" Zhou Zhuo nodded. "I'm afraid the disciples of the Amei faction are also looking for me. I have to go back and say hello." "Then will you come back?" Song Qingshu asked. Looking at Song Qingshu's expectant eyes, Zhou Zhuo's heart softened. She answered ambiguously, "It depends." Seeing that she had no intention of refusing, Song Qingshu was happy. He knew that Zhou Zhuo was shy and would not be able to put down her pride immediately after waking up, so he did not force her. In the blink of an eye, there was only one person left in the fragrant room. After a wry smile, Song Qingshu sat cross-legged and began to sort out the internal energy in his body. Venerated Ming's internal energy was indeed extraordinary. Fortunately, he had the delightful Zen art, a magical healing tool. Although there were still some minor problems in his body, they would be fine after a period of recuperation. It should not affect the upcoming martial arts competition. Zhou Zhuo, Zhu Yaoyao, and Xia Qingqing were all top-notch experts. Last night, they did their best to save him. After treating his injuries, Song Qingshu found that his internal energy had become even purer. Speaking of which, I still have to thank revered Ming for that palm strike. A strange smile appeared on the corners of Song Qingshu's lips. If it wasn't for that, how could he have enjoyed their gentleness at the same time, since the three women were extremely aloof and arrogant? Thinking of last night's touching moment, Song Qingshu felt the internal energy in his body stir. He could not help but feel a chill in his heart. He quickly calmed down and began to regulate his internal energy. After an unknown period of time, when Song Qingshu finished circulating his internal energy and woke up, he suddenly heard a gentle female voice coming from outside the window. "Brother Song, are you awake? Miss Zeng, come in." Song Qingshu waved his sleeve, and the door opened automatically. Looking at the pretty girl standing at the door, he quickly asked, "Miss Zeng, have you been waiting outside?" "Not really." Zeng Ro shook her head slightly. "When I found out that your injuries were healed and saw that you were cultivating, I went back to rest. Now, Master sent me to invite you to the meeting hall. He has something important to discuss with you." Feeling guilty, Song Qingshu deliberately chatted with Zeng Ro along the way, asking her about her daily life. In his opinion, since Situ Boile had betrothed her to him, he had to get to know his fiancée better. Zeng Ro answered him in a soft voice, not impatient at all. Instead, she sounded happy. After all, they did not have many opportunities to be alone together, let alone to chat like this. However, happy times always passed quickly. Looking at the meeting hall not far away, Zeng Ro said, "Brother Song, you can go in by yourself. The ninth princess and master are waiting for you inside." "You're not going in?" Song Qingshu was surprised. "No, I have other things to do." Zeng Ro shook her head with a smile. Looking at her departing figure, Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. She was really a gentle and soft girl. What was Prince Song talking about? Situ Boile's voice suddenly came to his ears. "No, nothing. Only then did Song Qing-shu realize that he had walked into the hall, and he couldn't help but look embarrassed. Noticing that Xia Qingqing was also there, Song Qing-shu was surprised. "Didn't you go back to the main peak?" Xia Qingqing couldn't help but roll her eyes. "It's been 3 days." Song Qing-shu was surprised and exclaimed, "3 days?" Xia Qingqing nodded gloomily. "You seem to have fainted. I couldn't wake you up. Gio said that you had entered the embryonic breathing realm." Song Qing-shu was surprised. No wonder he felt refreshed after using his internal energy. Not only was his internal injury healed, but his energy was also more profound and pure. "I didn't miss the Golden Snake meeting, did I?" Song Qing-shu asked with a strange expression. After painstakingly planning for so long, if he overslept, wouldn't he be angry to death? "You would have missed it if you slept for another 2 days." Zhu Yiren pursed her lips and smiled. "Now I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?" "Looking at your expressions, the bad news can't be that bad. Let's talk about the good news first." Song Qing-shu sat down between the two girls. "The good news is that your nomination was approved by more than half of the chiefs, and you successfully became one of the 16 candidates," Zhu Yiren answered. "It seems that Zhao Min is a woman of her word." "Wait." Song Qing-shu suddenly realized something. "Why are there 16 candidates? Aren't there supposed to be 11? There were a total of 12 peaks, but Xia Qingqing's main peak and Situ Bolei's Wangwu sect had chosen the same person. Naturally, there should only be 11 candidates," Situ Bolei explained, "because there were too many Jianghu people who heard the news. When they heard that one must be nominated by the chiefs of the peaks to be eligible to participate, they almost rioted. Later, in order to avoid making enemies with the Jianghu people, the leaders of the Golden Snake camp unanimously agreed to add a few more places, which calmed their anger." Xia Qingqing said, "In the past few days, the idle Jianghu people fought back and forth, and finally, the remaining 5 places were determined. These Jianghu people must have confidence in their martial arts, so they ran to participate in the Golden Snake King. Being able to stand out among so many masters, I think these 5 people are top masters." Song Qing-shu sighed. "These 5 people do have unique skills." Xia Qingqing nodded and said, "A guy named Zhuobu Fan, known as the sword god of Tianshan Mountain. His swordsmanship is outstanding, and no one can last more than 10 moves under his hands." Duan Yanqing, the leader of the 4 great villains, also came. "His one-son finger is really domineering, and he also won a place." There is also a man named Gongsun Ji, who seems to be the valley master of the Passionless Valley. With a golden saber and black sword in his hand, he is also in the limelight. There is also a woman from the 5 Poison sect. Not only is her martial arts powerful, but her use of poison is also superb. "The 5 Poison sect?" Song Qing-shu was stunned, and he quickly interrupted and asked, "What is her name?" "He ties ho, I know Qing-qing," Zhu Meng answered from the side. When she saw the strange expression on Song Qing-shu's face, she could not help but ask curiously, "Why? Do you also know her?" Thinking of the trip to the 5 Poison sect, the cold lake water, and the hot body, Song Qing-shu answered embarrassedly, "I met her once." "She can't be your woman too, right?" Xia Qingqing looked at him suspiciously. "Of course not." Song Qing-shu laughed awkwardly. He thought to himself, "To he ties ho, I'm more like a detoxifying tool, so she naturally won't think of me as her woman." "Who is the other one?" Song Qing-shu quickly changed the topic. "This person's martial arts are even more powerful. He is clearly a one-armed young man, but he has a dark steel heavy sword in his hand. No one has been able to withstand a single strike from him." Situ Bolei was filled with emotion. It was obvious that this person had left a very shocking impression on him. A one-armed young man with a dark steel heavy sword? Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. "Don't tell me his name is Yonghua." "How did you know?" the 2 women asked at the same time. "His characteristics are too obvious." Song Qing-shu did not want to explain too much. "By the way, is he the bad news you were talking about?" Zhu Meng shook her head. "Although these people's martial arts are powerful, I don't think they are a match for you." "What bad news is that?" Song Qing-shu suddenly had a bad feeling when he saw her suddenly serious expression. The Thousand Willow Manor's villa master, Chu Honglu, nominated a young girl in her early 20s. The other mountains are laughing at him, but we know this young girl's strength very well because she was the one who saved you from revered Ming. Xia Qingqing sighed. Ah Qing. Song Qing-shu could not help but gasp. Chapter 433. How is this possible? It was no wonder that Song Qing-shu had an incredulous look on his face. Ah Qing was obviously ignorant of worldly affairs and seemed to be aloof from worldly affairs. Why would she participate in this? That's the truth. Xia Qingqing also had a depressed look on her face. In this Golden Snake King election, whether or not one is nominated and approved by half of the leaders depends on the prestige and influence of that person in Jianghu. It doesn't matter how naive the candidate looks on the surface. This is because the person who can pass has a huge force behind him to help him. That's what the leaders are more interested in. As for the following process of the election, the other leaders unanimously agreed that Jianghu affairs should be left to Jianghu, and the final winner will be decided by martial arts. Song Qing-shu listened carefully to her explanation and understood that the rules of this Golden Snake King election were simple and crude. The candidates would directly compete in pairs, and the winner would advance to the next round, and so on. The final winner would be the new Golden Snake King. Isn't this similar to the football and basketball competitions in my previous life? First, the top 16 will compete to determine the top 8. Then the top 4 will be selected from the top 8, and the top 4 will compete to determine the 2 who will participate in the final. Song Qing-shu quickly understood the rules. I can only try to make it as late as possible for you to meet Ah Qing. I hope she will be eliminated midway. There were so many sudden changes in this Golden Snake gathering, which gave Xia Qingqing a headache. How can she be eliminated? Song Qing-shu looked depressed. If someone can really eliminate Ah Qing, I don't know how powerful that person's martial arts will be, and I won't be able to defeat him. Situ Boile said in surprise. What's the origin of that girl? Even with Prince Song's martial arts, he is no match for her? Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly and said, she is a sword immortal who has descended to the world. How can a mortal like me defeat her? How can there be immortals in this world? Zhu Meng suddenly interrupted. Song, I know your martial arts best. I'm afraid there are few opponents in this world. No matter how powerful that girl's martial arts are, if you really fight with her, you will only have a 50-50 chance. Why are you afraid before the fight? Song Qing-shu's expression froze. He knew that the description of Ah Qing in the novels from his past life was still in his mind, and he subconsciously thought of her as an invincible sword fairy. However, his life experience was also unimaginable. What he had learned were the top martial arts in the world. The Joy Zen of the Tantric sect was close to the way of cultivation. Speaking of which, he was not an ordinary mortal. With this thought in mind, Song Qing-shu suddenly felt his spirits rise. He laughed loudly and said, Ah, Gio, thank you for your warning. If she's a sword immortal, then I'm a sword demon. I refuse to believe that a demon can't defeat an immortal. Seeing that he had regained his fighting spirit, Zhu Yuehua pursed her lips into a smile and thought to herself, this is the man I chose. By the way, who are the remaining nominees? Song Qing-shu asked worriedly. Since Ah Qing had appeared, it wouldn't be strange for Dugu seeking a loss to appear later. Because this time we're choosing a new leader for the Golden Snake Battalion, everyone unanimously decided that the candidates can't be heads of other sects and the like. Therefore, the candidates are either loners or ordinary disciples of other sections. However, there's an exception. Xia Qingqing didn't answer directly. Instead, she explained first. What exception? Song Qing-shu asked curiously. Tian Di Hui Zong De Ozu, Qin Jinan. In this life, I don't know Qin Jinan, so it's useless to call him a hero. Zong Duozu Qin's prestige and reputation in Jianghu is too great. Therefore, when Zheng Qiyun, the leader of the 72 islands overseas, nominated him, everyone made an exception and agreed. Xia Qingqing's face immediately revealed a strange expression. It's reasonable to say that He Zheng and the Zheng family of Taiwan are distant relatives. Why didn't he nominate someone from the Zheng family of Taiwan? I'm afraid I know the reason. Song Qing-shu promptly told everyone about the conflict between him and Zheng Keshuang, how he killed Feng Shifan, and how he made Zheng Keshuang scram back to Taiwan with his tail between his legs. Zhu Yanai nodded slightly. No wonder Zheng Qian nominated Chen Jinan at the last minute. Although Tian Di Hui has developed rapidly in recent years, it's gradually showing signs of disharmony. Those people in the Taiwan government often constrain Tian Di Hui, so there's already a gap between the two sides. However, Tian Di Hui has a deep relationship with the Zheng family, and Chen Jinan has the trust of Yin Ping Junwang. It's understandable that Zheng Qian had no choice but to recommend Chen Jinan. Ajiu, the Zheng family of Taiwan, is one of the few remaining forces of the Ming dynasty. Have you been in contact with them? Song Qing-shu asked curiously. I've been to the Taiwan government once. A trace of displeasure flashed across Zhu Yanai's face. Those people from a Zheng family have the temperament of occupying a mountain and acting like a king. Moreover, they have the intention of competing for the Central Plains. I saw that they didn't really want to fight against the Qing and restore the Ming, so I was disappointed and quietly left. Song Qing-shu hesitated for a moment before saying, Ah, Jio, there's something I don't know if I should say. Zhu Yanai was startled. What is it? Song Qing-shu replied. At that time, the Manchurian Qing was very powerful. Even if you knew that the Zheng family was disloyal, you should have dealt with them more and united all the forces that could be united. Only then would you have a chance of success. Just like Tian Di Hui's Mu Palace's struggle for the position of Tang Wang and Gue Wang, you haven't even dealt with the Tatars, but you've already killed each other. Zhu Yanai smiled and shook her head. Songdage, sometimes when I hear you talk, I feel like you didn't grow up in this world. The concept of status is deeply ingrained in the bones of everyone in this world. As the saying goes, if one's status isn't legitimate, it won't be justified. What do you mean it won't be justified? Song Qing-shu sneered incessantly. In the end, it's that group of people who want to follow the emperor. They're worried that the person supported by the other party will become the emperor. They'll risk their lives and work hard for a lifetime only to get nothing in return. Zhu Yanai was startled. What you said is somewhat reasonable. Xia Qingqing laughed tenderly. Right now we're discussing the election of the Golden Snake King. Why are you talking about it so far? Besides, our Golden Snake Battalion is against both the Qing and the Ming. You're talking about these things in front of me. How am I supposed to behave? Zhu Yanai came back to her senses and explained, I'm not such a stubborn person. Qingqing, aren't you guys the traitors of the past? I can still make friends with you because we have different standpoints. Taiwan's Zheng family is different. As the great Ming subjects, they have the heart to stand on their own feet. It's really annoying. All right, my ninth princess, quickly calm down. Xia Qingqing came to her side and gently rubbed her chest. After the night she healed Song Qing-shu together, the two of them were obviously much closer. This kind of intimate action was very natural for Xia Qingqing. Zhu Yanai felt a bit uncomfortable being rubbed by her chest. She angrily pushed away her naughty hand and said, Let's talk about Song Dage's opponents. Zhu Yanai unrolled a scroll and pointed at the names on it one by one to explain to Song Qing-shu. Let's not talk about you being recommended by Qingqing and General Sidu for now. The former Ming dynasty's Zongbing Shui Jian nominated Jinyang's hero Xiaoban. Xiaoban is kind, generous, and loyal. He is very famous in the Jinyang area. He has also practiced the art of origin to perfection. You fought before, so you should have an impression of him. Song Qing-shu nodded. When he saved Shui Sheng, he was regarded as a pervert and fought with her for a few moves. His art of origin was unique. Sha Tong Tian of the Evil Tiger Valley should have been bribed by the Sun Moon sect. He nominated Holy Nun's lover, Ling Huchong. Ling Huchong is a young hero who has risen to fame in the Five Mountain Sword sect in recent years. His swordsmanship is extremely exquisite. It's rumored that he learned the sword sage Feng Qingyang's solitary 9 swords. Last time, he saved Run Wushing from the Plum Manor and learned the extremely strange absorbing stars. When I stayed at the Blackwood Cliff with the identity of the Ming Dynasty's holy maiden, he seemed to be seriously injured and bedridden. I don't know why he suddenly recovered this time. Song Qingshu thought that Ling Hucheng might have been saved by the revered Ming. No wonder Zhao Min resolutely gave up the idea of choosing Yang Yaojin as the spokesperson when she found out that the Redcoat Army and the Sun Moon Sect had formed an alliance. She knew that the Sun Moon Sect had the backing of the Ming Dynasty. The Azure Bamboo Sect nominated an iron-headed youth called Yutanji. It's said that he's the disciple of the Xingqiu Immortal. He seems to have a close relationship with the Hebei beggar sect's elder, Quan Guanqing. This person's martial arts are unknown, but he's from the Xingqiu sect. We must be wary of his poison skills. Yutanji. Song Qingshu recalled that in the original work, his ice inner force made Xiao Feng suffer. He wondered if he would be affected by his ice inner force. The Golden Dragon sect's Jiao Wanner, the couple nominated Murong Fu from Gusu. The Golden Dragon sect is a big sect in Jinling City. It's normal for them to nominate Murong Fu, who is also from Gusu. Although the Murong family's shifting stars is famous in Jianghu, I don't think he's a match for you. Of course, he's not a match for me. Otherwise, why would he think of a way to stop me from participating? Song Qingshu sneered in his heart. The Roaming Dragon sect's chief, Rong, nominated a disciple called He Shiwo from the Jiangnan beggar sect. This person is nameless in the beggar sect, so his martial arts shouldn't be that good. Oh, by the way, gang leader Rong also played a part in getting a nomination approved, Big Brother Song. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Xiaomin really kept her word. She said she helped him get the nomination, and she really did it. He Shiwo wasn't a Hudo. Xiaomin's plan was really deep. She even extended her hand to Jiangnan. However, this Golden Snake convention was full of masters. Although Huido's martial arts were not bad, it was not enough. He didn't know what Zhao Min was planning. Zhu Yong continued. The abbot of the Qingliang Temple, Reverend Shirley, nominated a Shaolin Temple disciple named Su. In the Shaolin Temple, there are many masters named Xian and Kong. Those named Su are all new disciples. I'm afraid their martial arts are limited. Don't tell me he's called Shuju. Song Qingshu had a strange look on his face. Do you know him? Zhu Yong was surprised. Nothing, go on. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Shuju, this ordinary-looking little monk, would probably surprise everyone this time. However, the exquisite chess game had not happened in this world. So where did Shuju get his martial arts? Chapter 434. Zhu Yaoyao didn't know what was bothering Song Qingshu. She continued. Nie Tianfeng, the master of the Flying Tiger Valley, recommended the fourth lady of the Redcoat Army, Yang Yaojin. The Redcoat Army is active in the Jin Kingdom, and its reputation is no less than that of the Golden Snake Camp. The fourth lady is said to be invincible with her pear blossom spear. Although it's not true, she has led the Redcoat Army to fight against the Jin Kingdom's cavalry for many years. I've fought with her. Her pear blossom spear is really powerful, Song Qingshu said with lingering fear as he recalled the sky full of pear blossoms. Isn't she pretty? Zhu Yuehua's lips curled into a charming smile. She's pretty. She has a heroic spirit that ordinary women don't have. Huh? Song Qingshu suddenly found that the two women were looking at him with a faint smile. He was embarrassed and hurriedly explained, I have nothing to do with her. We didn't say anything. Why are you so nervous? Xia Qingqing said with a smile. Besides, it's good to have a relationship with her. If you really fight with her, she won't be able to compete with you for the Golden Snake King. A strange light flashed in Situ Bulei's eyes. Listening to their conversation, it seemed that this Madame Yuan and Song Qingshu also had an unusual relationship. However, this kind of thing didn't matter to the ninth princess, so how could he say anything? What are you guys thinking? Although her marksmanship is brilliant, I'm not someone to be trifled with. How can I rely on favors? Song Qingshu looked gloomy. He had actually been treated as someone who relied on a woman. Okay, okay, I know you're good. Zhu Yaoyao smiled. Obviously, she didn't care too much. Guy Mengchong and Meng Bofiai nominated a man named Sherpatian. This man is very mysterious. We can't find out anything about his origin or martial arts. Sherpatian? Song Qingshu was numb. Ah Qing had appeared, so Sherpatian was not a big deal. In the entire Golden Book system, the top 10 martial artists and even the top 3 martial artists were disputed. However, the top 2 martial artists were almost universally acknowledged. The martial arts system in Walk of the Gallant was too different. It was completely different from the martial arts in other basic books. In the book, a sect leader who played a small role could use his internal energy to melt a bronze plate into liquid copper. Then, he was beaten up by Zhang San and Li Si sent out by the Isle of Heroes. There were dozens of people like Zhang San and Li Si on the Isle of Heroes, and the second Isle Master Dragon was an existence that far surpassed Zhang San and Li Si. These 2 Isle Masters were almost killed by Sherpatian, who had mastered the great mystery scripture. Song Qingshu couldn't imagine how powerful Sherpotian's martial arts were. Not to mention Sherpatian, even that soy sauce sect leader's ability to melt the copper plate into juice was something that even Song Qingshu couldn't do. Perhaps even Zhang Wuji, who had reached the peak of 9 suns, couldn't do it. Where did this Meng Bofiai come from? How could he find Sherpatian? Song Qingshu's expression couldn't help but turn ugly. Even though Meng Bofiai has a reputation in Jianghu, it's mainly because he's kind and generous. His so-called secret arts, Meng family's divine fist and 30 palms of happiness, may sound earth-shattering, but they're actually just some third-rate martial arts. I feel that the person he found shouldn't be very skilled. Seeing the change in his expression, Zhu Yin asked curiously, Song Lang, you know this person? I know a little. His peak martial arts shouldn't be below Ah Qing's. Song Qingshu sighed. Xia Qingqing's expression changed. Oh no, I thought his martial arts weren't that high, so I arranged for him to fight you? You arranged for me to fight him? Song Qingshu's breath stopped. Which round? If you both win, you will meet in the second last round, Xia Qingqing said with a sad face. If I had known this would happen, I would have arranged for him to fight Ah Qing. No matter who wins, even if they don't die, they will still lose a layer of skin. Maybe they won't have the strength to participate in the last round. You don't have to worry too much about it. As the saying goes, soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. If you want to win the Golden Snake King, you have to beat all of your opponents. Song Qingshu quickly recovered and quickly comforted her. Zhu Yin also comforted her. Yes, you have to have a little confidence in Song Qingshu. His martial arts are already very high. Xia Qingqing pouted, her face gloomy. This time, the arrangement of the troops was actually very particular. Everyone wanted the person they nominated to be a pushover, so after a few rounds of games, no one picked a famous opponent. The result of this competition will probably make the eyeballs of many of the leaders pop out of their sockets. What's the situation like? Song Qingshu asked in a deep voice. This competition is divided into 2 halves, and each half has 8 candidates. The final winner will participate in the final competition with the winner of the other half. We know how powerful Ah Qing is, so we deliberately put her in a different half from you. Some people know that she is a young girl, so they all fight to choose her as their opponent. I wonder if they will be scared to death by Ah Qing during the competition. At this point, Xia Qingqing's eyes could not help but curve. She had a gloating expression on her face. Who's so unlucky to meet Ah Qing in the first round? Song Qingshu had already sentenced him to death in his heart. Everyone fought to choose Ah Qing as their opponent. In the end, they couldn't argue, so they gave her to those Jianghu stragglers without any backing. Anyway, everyone thought that if they couldn't get her, they wouldn't be able to take advantage of her either. I didn't expect that they would be able to avoid a disaster. Xia Qingqing looked regretful. She was obviously very dissatisfied with this result. Looking at Xia Qingqing's young girl slyness, Song Qingshu could not help but smile. Only then did he remember that she was also a real little demon girl when she was in Jianghu. Why are you looking at me like that? Noticing Song Qingshu's gaze, Xia Qingqing lowered her head in embarrassment. Nothing. Song Qingshu smiled gently. Who is that unlucky straggler? It's the guy who calls himself the God of Swords, Zhu Yinshi answered. Zhuo Bufan, the God of Swords meets the Immortal of Swords. This is interesting. Song Qingshu imagined the scene of the competition between the two of them and expressed his infinite condolences to Zhuo Bufan. Then who was my opponent in the first round? Hearing his question, the two women looked at each other and smiled. You will definitely like this opponent. Song Qingshu was stunned, but he quickly reacted. It can't be Tai's Ho, right? Xia Qingqing stuck out her tongue. Sect leader, he is an old acquaintance of ours. Although her martial arts are high, there is still a gap between her and you. Unless you have tender feelings for the fairer sex, it is impossible for you to lose. Song Qingshu touched his nose and smiled maliciously. If I remember correctly, this He Tai's Ho seemed to have fallen in love with someone who was disguised as a man, right? Xia Qingqing's fair face suddenly turned red, and she was so ashamed that she could not speak. Zhu Yinshi glanced at her, covered her mouth, and said with a smile, I didn't expect you to know such a secret. Song Qingshu, this time, for you, Qingqing has even betrayed her old lover. Bah! Xia Qingqing could not help but spit. She stretched out her hand and twisted it around Zhu Yinshi's waist. It's all your idea. Song Qingshu smiled as he looked at the two women who were laughing and fighting together. It seemed that the estrangement between the two women in the past had disappeared. If he had known this earlier, he would have gotten them into bed earlier. Under the careful explanation of the two women, Song Qingshu finally figured out the matchups of the candidates. It was almost the same as the football matches in his previous life. Soon, a matchup similar to the matches in his previous life appeared in his mind. The first round. Upper half, Group A, Song Qingshu vs Itiesho Group B. Hero of Jinyang Shaoban versus Constellation Sect Disciple Yu Tanji Group C. Yang Miaojin, Fourth Lady of the Redcoat Army versus Chun Jinan, Head of Tian Di Hui Group D. Beggar Sect Disciple He Shiwo vs Mysterious Teenager Sure Potion the lower half. Group E. Mysterious Girl Qing versus Sword God Zhuo Bufan Group F. Su Zhu of Shaolin Temple versus Murong Fu of Gusu Temple Group G. One-Armed Youngster Yanghua vs Heartless Valley Master Gong Sun. G Group H. Successor of the Nine Swords. Ling Hu Chong versus Leader of the Four Villains. Duan Yanqing the second round. Upper half. Group A winner versus Group SB winner of Group C versus Group VSD lower half. Winner of Group E versus Group VSF winner of Group G versus Group VSH third round. Upper half. Winner of Group AB versus Group VSC lower half. Winner of Group EF versus Group VHH last round. Winner of the upper half versus winner of the lower half. Song Qingshu went through the list of names in his mind. It seemed that Xia Qingqing and Zhu Yaoying had put in a lot of effort for him. His grouping was pretty good. He Tai's Ho and Chen Jinan were both old acquaintances. Xiao Ban and Yang Miaojin had fought against them before, so they knew each other very well. As for the others, no matter it was Yutanji, He Shiwo, or Sher Patian, they were all nameless figures in the Jianghu. It was just that they didn't expect that apart from He Shiwo, all three of them were top-notch experts. Even so, compared to those in the lower half, he was undoubtedly much luckier. Every one of them was a top-notch expert in the Jianghu. There was no need to mention Qing, but Su Zhu, the simple-minded monk, would probably surprise everyone. It was ridiculous that Murong Fu had tried so hard to avoid him, thinking that he had chosen a pushover. He didn't expect that he would be defeated in the end. However, since he had obtained the 18 dragon subduing palms, he still had a chance. Last time, when Xiao Long knew when to look for him, didn't they meet? Judging from the current situation, Yanghua probably hadn't created the sad palm yet. Even so, in the original novel, he was able to sweep the entire Jianghu with just a heavy sword. However, Gong Sun Ji was not careless either. With a golden saber in one hand and a black sword in the other, he was almost like Zhou Buodong's left and right mutual combat. In the original novel, even Yanghua and Xiao Long Nu's dual sword combination had been defeated by him. It seemed that there would be a fierce battle between them. Ling Huchong and Duan Yanqing's team was more interesting. Ling Huchong's attainment in the 9 strategies beyond the swords was far inferior to Feng Qingyang's, but it was more than enough to deal with most of the Jianghu people. In addition, his absorbing stars could frighten people in the Jianghu, and Duan Yanqing would definitely have a hard time. However, Duan Yanqing was a famous expert of the evil sect for decades. He had dominated the world for so many years, and the few times he had lost were to Xiao Feng and himself, so it wasn't too shameful. In the original novel, he had fought against Ding Chunqiu and Zhou Maji several times. Even though he didn't have a life-or-death battle with them, they were evenly matched. In the later part of the novel, he could easily defeat Murong Fu and his 4 henchmen. His attainment in the One Yang finger could be said to be the best among the laymen of the Duan family in Dali. Even among the monks of the Sky Dragon Temple, only Reverend Yiding could defeat him. Between Ling Huchong and Duan Yanqing, it was a 50-50 chance of winning. Chapter 435. Over the next 2 days, Song Qingshu concentrated on his closed-door training and consciously adjusted his state to the peak. Finally, the Golden Snake competition began. The Golden Snake competition was held in a drill ground on the main peak of the Golden Snake camp. In the middle of the field was a square platform of several square feet, which was probably the place where the candidates would compete. There was a circle of seats around the platform, which was used to accommodate the many sects and martial artists who came to watch the competition. The distance between the seats and the platform was neither too far nor too close, so that the guests in the seats would not be accidentally hurt by the competition in the arena, and also to prevent these martial artists from affecting the competition in the arena. Jianghu had always been a place of seniority, so the main seats were naturally reserved for famous sects such as Shaolin, Wudong, Beggar Sect, and Chongyang Palace. For some reason, Xia Qingqing deliberately arranged Song Qingshu's seat among these main seats. Xia Qingqing was the nominal leader of the Golden Snake camp. Because she was the widow of the former Golden Snake King, it was naturally inconvenient for her to be with Song Qingshu in public. However, she did not want to be too far away from Song Qingshu, so she used her official position for her private interests and arranged for Song Qingshu to also be in this main tent. The leaders of the other mountains knew that Song Qingshu was the person nominated by Xia Qingqing, so they naturally turned a blind eye to it. Some even had the thought of waiting for Song Qingshu to make a fool of himself. After all, a stranger standing among the Shaolin and Wudong messengers was really an eyesore. Song Qingshu came very early. There were a few people sitting in the field, and most of the martial artists were still entering. As the former princess of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Yaoyao's identity was quite sensitive, so she covered her face with a thin veil, revealing only a pair of beautiful eyes that seemed to be able to speak. Wherever she passed by, people would speculate about the background of this fairy-like figure. Seeing Zheng Rou following behind Zhu Yanrui with a cautious look, Song Qingshu could not help laughing. Rou, don't be so restrained. Ajio is not an outsider. You are so respectful, as if you were serving your master. A young girl's mind was swayed by personal gains and losses. Song Qingshu was worried that by calling her Miss Song, he would sound too distant and make her sad. Noticing the change in the way he addressed her, Zheng Rou blushed slightly and smiled sheepishly. The ninth princess is highly skilled in martial arts. How could she have an ordinary disciple like me? Zhu Haiyan took her hand and said, I am no longer a princess. Besides, we will be a family in the future. Let's call each other sisters. Zheng Rou lowered her head and nodded, obviously excited. Speaking of disciples, I do have a disciple as old as younger sister Rou. Zhu Yui suddenly thought of something and laughed while covering her mouth. Isn't that about the same age as you? What kind of idiot would want to defeat you as his master? It can't be a man, right? Song Qingshu's expression was a little ugly. In his opinion, the only explanation was that a man had taken a fancy to a Jio and was using the opportunity of becoming her disciple to get close to her. What are you thinking? Of course it's a woman. Zhu Yui blushed. Not only is it a woman, but it's also an outstanding beauty. The next time I see her, I'll introduce her to you. Song Qingshu was stunned. Why do I feel so nervous? When did you become a pimp? You're the pimp. Zhu Yui couldn't help but punch him. My disciple has a special identity. I really can't like her. A light flashed in Song Qingshu's mind, and he blurted out, Your disciple isn't Aku, right? How do you know? It was Zhu Yui's turn to be surprised. It turned out that on that day, Zhu Yui was angry that Wu Sangue betrayed his master for glory and betrayed his country. So she sneaked into Shanghai past Prince Ping, Xi's mansion to assassinate him. However, Wu Sangue knew that he was the public enemy of all the Han people in the world, so the defense of his mansion was like an iron bucket. Zhu Yui really couldn't find an opportunity to take advantage of. When she was about to retreat, she accidentally ran into a little girl with pink makeup in the prince's mansion. Ajio had seen the beautiful Chun Yuan in the past, and this little girl was carved from the same mold as Chun Yuan. She didn't need to ask to know that this person must be Wu Sangue's daughter. Aku, who had been locked in the prince's mansion since she was a child, had always been full of yearning for the outside world and martial arts. When she saw Ajio in white fluttering down from the sky, she was immediately shocked and immediately pestered to worship Ajio as her master. Ajio, who was going to kidnap her, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Seeing the little girl's innocent appearance, he couldn't harden his heart and finally became her master. However, after waking up, Ajio remembered the identity of her parents and really couldn't be kind to Aku, so he carelessly taught her some martial arts and then floated away. Because Ajio's Qigong was superb and Aku had always been tight-lipped, other than the two of them, no one in Ping Shi Wang's mansion knew about this relationship. Naturally, Ajio was very surprised that Song Qingshu knew about it. After a moment of carelessness, Song Qingshu couldn't help but smile awkwardly. He couldn't possibly fool her with some all-knowing man in Jianghu. This kind of extremely private matter, it was impossible for the all-knowing man to know. Actually, I know Aku, she told me. You two know each other. Although there was a veil covering his face, Song Qingshu could still feel the strange expression on Ajio's face. In this world, is there a beautiful woman that you don't know? There is, such as that one over there. Song Qingshu smiled and pointed to a young girl with an excited expression not far away. Ajio followed his gaze and saw a young girl wearing a light red silk robe with a string of pearls hanging around her neck. Her complexion was incomparably white and tender, like cream that seemed to be dripping water. Her eyes were flowing and her elegant eyebrows were slender. Even though she was conceited about her beauty, she had to admit that this young girl's appearance was absolutely beautiful, not inferior to her own. Song Qingshu was baffled. The seats of honor were not for the emissaries of the famous sects, but for the candidates recommended by the leaders of Golden Snake Camp. This young girl was only in her teens, so how could she be here? There seemed to be a familiar feeling between the young girl's eyebrows. Where had he seen her before? But this was clearly impossible. His memory couldn't be so bad. So how could he not remember someone he had seen before? Seeming to notice Song Qingshu's gaze, the young girl turned her head and glared at him. She couldn't help but snort, but she noticed the two women at his side and couldn't help but be stunned. Following the young girl's cold snort, the two youths around her seemed to have received a signal, and they quietly said, "Where did this lecture come from?" Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. He didn't explain any further and directly found his seat to sit down. With his current status in martial arts, he naturally wouldn't make things difficult for this kind of junior. "Hey, which sect are you from? How can you sit here?" The young girl saw that he was ignoring her and couldn't help but be a bit angry. She never understood etiquette. In fact, she didn't have any evil intentions in asking this question. She simply wanted to know Song Qingshu's identity. But with her careless words, it sounded more like she was rebuking Song Qingshu for not having the qualifications to sit here. Ajio's elegant eyebrows furrowed. Even Zheng Ro, who was at the side, looked indignantly at the young girl walking over. "Whether I can sit here or not, do I need your approval?" Song Qingshu smiled faintly. "Of course it's related. What if a Manchurian spy sneaked in?" The young girl replied, as if it was a matter of fact. This time, Even the faces of the two companions next to her were a bit embarrassed. They thought to themselves, which spy would be so stupid as to choose such an eye-catching position? The young girl tilted her head and continued to say, I have a bit of an impression of the disciples of the famous Orthodox sects, but I've never seen you before. What? You've seen the disciples of the famous Orthodox sects? Song Qingshu laughed. Of course, the young girl proudly puffed out her chest like a proud little rooster. My father is... Before the young girl finished speaking, she was interrupted by a cold male voice. I haven't seen you for a long time, but you're still the same, always showing off your parents. You haven't improved at all. The young girl's face immediately flushed red. She turned around and was about to scold him, but when she saw the appearance of the person clearly, the young girl looked as if she had seen a ghost. Her originally white and rosy skin suddenly lost all color and became incomparably pale. Yang. Song Qingshu had long known that an expert had come. His breathing was long, but for some reason, his footsteps were a bit heavy. At this time, he took the opportunity to look back and saw a delicate and handsome face with sword-like eyebrows and powerful phoenix eyes. But his face was pale, and he looked haggard. There was a dark, heavy sword tied to his back, and the empty sleeve on his right arm was particularly eye-catching. Such an obvious characteristic. Who else could it be other than Yanghua? Song Qingshu also immediately understood the identity of the young girl just now. She was so beautiful and so aggressive, like a mouse seeing a cat when it saw Yanghua. Of course, it was Lady Gua. No wonder he felt that she looked familiar. Back in Jiangling's Ling 2A residence, he had seen Huang Rong. This pair of mother and daughter looked about 70 to 80% similar. But now Huang Rong showed more of the bright charm of a mature woman, while Guofu showed more of an inexperienced youth. Their appearances were obviously similar, but their temperaments were completely different. No wonder he couldn't remember. Back then, after his meridians had recovered, he had specially gone to the divine Eagle Valley in order to search for the relics of the martial arts world. Unfortunately, the heavy sword had disappeared, so he had taken the wooden sword. Now the heavy sword was in Yanghua's hands. It seemed that Yanghua's hand had been cut off by Guofu last year. Yanghua is indeed handsome. This young master is known as the Jade-Faced Meng Chong, but compared to him, I'm still lacking. That temperament that can make a moth fly into a flame. Song Qingshu sighed as he called out to the two girls beside him, Agio and Roer, do you think this man is handsome? Zheng Ro blushed and lowered her head in silence. On the contrary, Zhu Xiaoyao raised her eyebrows and said, do you think I'm the kind of woman who will change her mind when she sees someone else? Song Qingshu was just joking, but seeing her fierce reaction, he realized that this world valued the ethics of chastity very much. He was about to apologize to her when he saw an embarrassed smile on her face. But he is indeed very good-looking. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.